So how many months into this location are we now in Noda?
We are 4 months, almost exactly.
4 months into this, things are generally like this when you're opening a new location to like, it was easier than we thought or it's harder than we thought? Or was it's rarely ever, it's exactly what we thought it would be?
I think both.
Okay. So go with yours first. Easier, harder, or exactly what I expected?
I think this is our first time opening a new studio. We took over the Mad Charlotte portfolio in November of 2022. So Finley had been the GM there for 4 years, roughly. In year 3 of that, we became partners in Mad Charlotte. And then she moved into the corporate side. We hired a couple of GMs, but never during her tenure was she opening a new studio.
Sure. Charlotte's been a two-unit market for...
Since 2017.
Early 2017.
Okay. Yeah. Or December. We opened Elizabeth in December of 2016.
16. Okay.
Okay.
Yeah. So that was 6 months before she took over as GM of both Charlotte studios. Yeah. We became partners in 2020, took over the business fully in November 2022. By February of 23, we kicked off the real estate project to open up this
location.
So through her experience and just through the first, 9 months of running Charlotte, we had a pretty good grasp, not that we weren't still learning, but a pretty good grasp of what it took to run existing studios. Opening new was brand new. Like we just didn't know. We didn't know what we didn't know.
Correct.
And we didn't have anybody on the team that had opened new studios. Obviously we had the support of corporate and the franchisor, which was super helpful just for, having some systems and processes. We had a great project team, like a real estate project team here locally that helped a lot. I think the harder part was just the fucking boots on the ground, like ass kicking work to generate brand awareness. Like there is no such thing as open it and they will come.
Sure.
Build it and they will come.
Even with the rebound of like the Elizabeth location, the South End location, like even here in Noda, did you find it was like when you go around like, oh, MADabolic's coming, they're like, what?
Yeah,
who? What?
Totally.
Yeah.
Yeah. You think you're the most important fucking thing in the city.
You're the shit
yes,
always.
Everyone knows who we are.
Yeah.
There are 1.5 million people in this city?
Yeah.
We have a great member base. We probably have 750 recurring members now across 3 studios. That's 750 out of 1.5 million.
Yep.
No one fucking knows you. You're not important. Like
that was humbling when we went to a tabling. We supported our GM at a tabling event at her apartment complex, and we're giving out free beers. And there were a lot of people that we interacted with, and I for sure thought like, oh, what's the gym? We were like MADabolic, and I was totally expecting to be like, I've heard of you all.
Yeah.
And
Nothing.
I don't think there was one lead that came to that table that knew who we were. So that was
a different attitude.
Super humbling experience, and also like really valuable to learn that at the outside of pre-sale, specifically for our GM to director, like, hey, we can't rely on our like market presence. You need to treat this as if no one knows who we are in Charlotte.
So we still, we didn't take that for granted, right? We worked hard, but it was more push than even we anticipated.
And I think it's interesting, especially with you guys being amongst the team now of franchisees who are opening up single unit locations in undeveloped markets you have zero presence in. Totally. You're like, fuck, this was tough, and we've got over a decade of being in Charlotte, North Carolina.
I will say I wasn't operating the opening, like I was not as hands-on as
you were growing
they
a baby
were.
In your stomach?
Yes, because I was pregnant, but also I spend most of my time on the franchising side of things. But because of the time I have spent there, and before I took the role that I'm in now, which is, the title is creative director, but really just like overseeing branding and marketing and messaging, all that. But before that, I was working with franchisees in pre-sale throughout their opening process. So I had the perspective of all of the snags that might happen in a pre-opening. And so we didn't know what to expect and that we'd never done it, but I feel like I had a decent grasp on like what pre-sale and pre-opening looks like from seeing so many other franchisees go through it.
How did you guys fare on the pre-sale side compared to the rest of the market? Because obviously when they're setting up a new franchisee and they're running through you guys your pre-sale playbook, there's probably like, well, here's what other markets similar to yours have done. They give them something to aim for. What did you aim for, and did you hit it?
Yeah, so we had a conservative target originally of conservatively realistic, let's call it, of 50 net new members at opening, plus whoever we would pull from our 2 existing studios that maybe lived closer here. And I think at opening day, we were just over 70 net new. Okay. Which was good. Sure. And then probably another 70 that we pulled internally. So we opened with about 130, 140. And
this is all organic. Do you guys running paid campaigns like Facebook ads and Instagram, like paying and pushing towards founders memberships?
We did some paid campaigns, but
not during pre-sale though. Remember, we didn't start that until
that's true.
We opened.
Yeah. So based on all organic, you guys, landed on 70-ish.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. And it was old school, right? So we, our perspective was the best way to find the most qualified people was to get them working out in our program. So we ran a free workout series all over NODA. We had, at its peak, we were running 5 workouts a week.
Where
Solmico back here.
Yeah.
We ran one at a brewery across the street. We ran 2 at apartment complexes in their gyms. And then we ran a 3rd up at another brewery up the street.
That my brother works at.
Nice. Yeah. So each kind of had its own pull because we used those partner businesses or apartment complex to help generate traffic as well. So we almost treated each free workout as its own lead funnel. Like we were nurturing leads for the free workout, which itself was a lead nurturing activity for the gym. So we were kind of funneling the funnel down to the bottom.
And there was incentive for repeated attendees. Like if you come to X number of workouts, you get this. If you come to the next one, you rack up all the way leading up to you get your first month free.
Yeah, we spent a lot of money.
Membership.
Yeah, we spent a lot of money. We opened up the purse strings. I mean, it was little shit, right? Come to your second workout in a row, you get a
bag of
$5 gift card to Raining Donuts.
Sure.
3rd, you get a free bag of Nights and Coffee, $15 a bag. Yep. 4th, you're getting a free 4-pack from one of the breweries, which, $60.
You guys got to build up the NODA side of the Mad Perks program too. So it double dips. It's like it allows us to hand-to-hand all the local businesses and all that shit.
Yeah, totally. And we'd hang out and do like a happy hour after the workouts. Like it was great. And we got to know a lot of members that way. And even still, we have people that went to the free workouts, didn't get a membership, that are now coming back around to the gym now that we're open. So yeah, it was a really good kind of market blitz for us to get our name out there in the market. But yeah, it was a fuckload of work. Like even just hauling weight back and forth from the gym.
Oh, that was
day.
Wild. Yeah. So Carol and we used Lanny's truck. I say we as if I was doing the majority share of the work. I
Just a happy
observed.
observer.
But they would in Elizabeth. So now the franchise, we have like a pre-sale workout fitness package, and we use Fat Bells for free workouts in other locations, which is great. But we didn't have that set up.
What's Fat Bells?
Fat Bells. So it's the kettlebell without the horn, and it's got a whole the handle
the
is
Don Thompson
inside.
Fat Bell.
You put it. Yep.
Literally like you're fisting and you end
it
up with
looks
a dumbbell.
absurd. It looks like you've got like a Thanos glove on, but
those
it's
are great. Though.
Yeah. So that's nice. We didn't have that equipment package. So Carol and Lanny and Trey, who's our lead trainer here, would, before every single workout, remember 5 nights a week sometimes, would go to Elizabeth and put a fuckload of equipment like D-balls, kettlebells, dumbbells. Dakota was programming the workouts and he used a lot of weight. So they're loading Lanny's truck bed up for a 6 p.m. workout, getting it all set up. And then they have to bring it all back that night.
It's a lot of manpower.
For the next trainer in the morning in Elizabeth. Like it was a lot for those people running those workouts.
We used to do the same thing with the torpedoes. I had 45 torpedoes just for offset events and load them up in the back of I didn't even think I had a truck then. I still had like the Ford Explorer or whatever. Fucking take it somewhere. Yeah. But then coach, by the way, there's something, we got some new people coming in. They're going to need some, I got to bring these back now before the next before the next day. It's a lot of manpower on that versus though the cost. Like I just had a client send in their itemized for pre-sale, $26,000 in Facebook ads over a 5-month period of pre-sale.
And what was the outcome there?
150 pre-sold members on that.
Oh shit.
Yeah. So I mean, like
that.
26, not bad at all. Like really not bad at all. But that was it. You see, the nice thing with yours is you get the benefit of brand awareness.
Yeah.
And then the lead acquisition and the new client acquisition. The idea would be to do both, right? Fuck, drop 26 and run around fucking crazy around town, right? But you gotta, when you don't have all the resources, just be resourceful.
Yeah.
And
it was a good lesson too. I think for us to hit it so hard on our first one opening, it was humbling in a good way, right? Like you want to know, like it's a good reminder that you need to go work hard, and you're not, just because you've had some success in your other locations, you're not entitled to success going forward. But also the in-person stuff and digital advertising is great. I will be the first one to admit we have not got that dialed in Charlotte yet. But we opened with, call it 140 members on day one, continued to sell for our first 3 or 4 months. We didn't lose our first member until about 4 weeks ago. So our churn in December was 0.
Awesome.
Our churn in January was 0. Our churn in February was 0. And these are mostly people that had never been to a MADabolic class before. So for them to experience a brand new product and be so bought in, I do think having people go through our program on an offsite, like they knew exactly what they were buying. They weren't buying a deal. They weren't buying some kind of financial incentive. Sure. They were buying the program and the GM and the trainer and the vision and the brand and everything that went with it.
And we smack them on the back end with, once they're in the funnel in pre-sale, they're getting hit with all of that like pretty distinct brand messaging and philosophies.
We don't do crushes
on the back end. We don't, so we're kind of like, we're like feeding them our philosophies before they're actually in the gym, so that when they're here, they can kind of like, I get it.
Yeah. And it all connects, right? The way you guys talk in the email newsletters sounds similar to how you're going to talk here. It doesn't sound like ChatGPT wrote the email newsletter. Then someone walks in here and you're dropping an F-bomb or saying that, totally. Whatever. It's got to all be cohesive. Did you find in pre-sale apartment complexes are harder to do shit with these days than they have in the past?
No. In fairness, I don't have a reference for past.
Got it. So what about the Camden here? Did you guys get something done with them? And the reason I ask, you seen that fucking
Camden Athletic Club?
The Camden
Yeah.
When was the last time in the history of apartment complex, at least in Charlotte, in which an apartment complex had its own branded fitness center with its own unique signage?
Exterior signage.
And you don't have to be a resident, right? You can can't you buy a gym membership there?
I don't know.
Someone told me you can just buy a gym membership there.
Yeah.
My favorite, where we go, my favorite hotel's in Ireland. It's called the Dean. There's 3 of them all over the place. They have their own HIIT studio. They have climbing, spin, sauna, open gym.
It's an apartment complex?
It's a hotel.
Fuck off.
Damn.
And it's down at the bottom of the hotel, but all the members are just local.
Yeah.
But it's all owned by this hotel company called the Dean, and a bunch of them over in Ireland. And like, it's fucking incredible.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it's nuts. But it's like, seeing apartment complexes invest in that. Are they more apt to do shit these days? Or do we think this is like an outlier of a fitness scenario?
So we did not do a free workout series there, but they've been cool. We have a good relationship with their team. We've got flyers up in there, elevators and that kind of stuff. So
good.
It took some sweet talking.
Sure, of course,
bringing donuts and coffees and little shit, right? To kind of get on good terms and buy their favor a little bit, or at least buy a meeting. Yeah. But they've been great. Yeah. They've been great.
The leasing managers there, it's like so hard. Some of them are just cool as fuck, and you do like a hangover breakfast or like, bring your residents free food and out, whatever. We'll do this thing, and they're all down. And others, they can make it tough, especially if they're, their boss's boss spent a fuck ton of money on building out this thing. They're like, no, we really want people using it.
Right. Right. But the difference is, they're in a lot of cases, they are far enough removed from the money-making decisions. They just want to make their jobs easy. They want their residents to have fun. Like they are interacting with their residents day to day and the businesses around them day to day. And if you can put a smile on their face, and they can put a smile on their residents' faces, that's what they care about.
If you could take a line item off their work, which is they have to host those fucking resident events.
Yeah, totally.
I fucking love doing that and thinking of that. So if you're like, hey, I'll do it every 6 weeks, we'll host a resident event for you. Taking care of that's one of them off your plate.
Yep.
Fuck yeah. I mean, why not? How has this market, this neighborhood, in your opinion, is it that do you have the same core customer here as you do in South End and Elizabeth, or are you seeing a different shade? Or are they interchangeable, you think?
I would say this is pretty comparable to South End because you've got a strong young demo. I would say you probably have a little bit more, that young demo is complemented a little bit more with the working parent demo, just Villa Heights being right up the street, Plaza Midwood, not too far away.
Residential.
Pull from both. Yeah, and NOTA doesn't quite have it doesn't yet have the same scale of kind of younger residents that South End does. It's getting there. I think Elizabeth is probably the more unique of the three because that is the most residential, young working families. And so our demo probably skews a little bit higher there, but even there, we're instead of being
5 years.
Yeah, instead of being 25 to 45, we're probably 30 to 50 there.
How do you think of that? Is it, and for everyone listening, so think of South End, right outside the city, right? High density. It's probably been the darling for the longest period of time as far as all the new businesses, all the cool shit goes there. And then NOTA here, we'd say is, it's like a younger brother or whatever, up and coming, following the same track. You can kind of see that it's going to follow the same path. Yeah, a little more hipstery, a little crunchier. And then Elizabeth is like, it's more of a residential chill, not as high a walkability. You probably afford a house over there kind of scenario.
Still 5 minutes from downtown, but yeah.
Was NOTA the lot, was this because when people are thinking setting up multiple locations, how did you guys factor that in? Because I know we've had discussions about maybe would you ever do the burbs of Charlotte and stuff like that? What is it? How did you guys land on this? I mean, this is a main drag. It makes sense from that perspective. Great location, great visibility. But was NOTA where you wanted to go?
No, not yet.
Where'd you want to go?
We thought we wanted to be in South Park or Montford, which is the high-end suburban market in Charlotte. Think about whatever market you're in, the kind of wealthiest zip code that's still within the city that kind of has its own little kind of
it's got a mall.
Entertainment district. Yeah. That's South Park.
Sure.
There was just no space.
Okay.
There was nowhere to go. Literally zero options that weren't either encumbered by some kind of exclusivity by another fitness tenant or that matched our footprint needs. Yeah, we were.
But if there was,
zero.
We'd be having this conversation, a South Park location.
We would
one would have popped up.
Yeah, we would be. We knew we wanted to be in NOTA as well. Couple reasons. One, NOTA is right in the middle of its growth. Not that we're early, but there is a lot more to come. Within a block of here, there's an apartment complex being built across the street. There's an apartment complex being built 2 buildings over, and there's an apartment complex being built behind us.
Yeah.
Right now. So it's all still kind of happening. I think in retrospect, we're very happy with the way that this timing worked out. Our growth strategy, we actually want to be able to capitalize on the momentum of our brand a little bit. And South Park would still give us that because our South End location and South Park would have been, call it 10, 15 minutes from each other. And we would have had a handful of members that would have defected from South End to go help support that opening, which for us is good. We want to give each studio a little bit more room. We add members every single month in each of our existing studios. We have since we took over. I would say we probably average about 10 per studio a month, net new, with some months being 25 and some months being 6.
Does that look like 30 in, 20 out, or what does that net new look like?
No, our retention
is about 2% or less.
Yeah, our monthly churn is about between 1.5% and 2.5%.
Okay. Now you guys have the mechanism of the contract as well, right? To help with that.
Yep.
Yeah.
Do you remember back, was MAD ever not contract based?
No, since even when I joined as a member in 2013, it was the 12-month unlimited contract was really what they pushed hard on, in line with that to support the come 4 times a week and that's all you need. We've changed, we've done 10 session flex passes, which we've always had, but sometimes
push a certain point.
We and now it's not really advertised. Yep. We have an 8-session-a-month membership that's also not on our website or advertised, but that 12-month unlimited has always been in place, that contract.
What do you think of that 8-session-a-month? Because again, obviously your mantra is 4 days a week.
Yeah.
But is that for someone who's like, I'm doing Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu 2 days a week and I'm training for a marathon or whatever the
fuck
is?
So we promote that we can also, we can be Mr. and Mrs. MADabolic. We can be for those people, but we're also here to support whatever it is you love to do out there.
Sure.
So for the runners and the yogis and someone training for an Ironman or whatever who can't make 4 times a week work, we don't want to lose that opportunity. And we also don't want to punish them for doing something else. We want to be able to make that practice a lot stronger.
Make supplemental membership essentially.
Yeah, and that's how everyone is talking about it when we have prospects or leads ready to convert to membership. We're never pushing the 8-session when they're like, well, I don't think
cost.
Yeah, because it's cheaper or it's only ever proposed when we know for a fact that lead is a committed fitness goer in some other discipline that wants to use MADabolic as a supplement.
Got it. And that's important because, it's one of those things where your mantra, you guys run with that 4 days a week, and everything you guys do generally interlocks. It's just like a really nice jigsaw puzzle. All the brand pieces interlock. But if there's an 8 times, it's like, well, that doesn't exactly match up. However, I remember it was early on, there was a way, and it was when, what did Emily Breeze fucking have? Moga?
Oh yeah.
Fucking Moga. Yeah.
Yes.
So mobility and yoga, we're right as Kelly Starrett's the crest of that whole thing. Local chick, Emily Breeze, pops up Moga over there in South End. And I remember, maybe it was her studio yourselves, but you guys were you guys had something on this is how to incorporate MADabolic with your yoga or Moga schedule or something like that. And it showed the incorporation.
Yes.
And I've always liked the Cosmopolitan. You show me someone who has a Core Power Fitness Yoga membership and wants my boutique fitness membership. Okay. Yeah. Financially, you're in the world I want to be in.
Yeah.
Now it's just okay, but am I trading the dollars for the wrong kind of person in? And that's what I've always loved with you guys, just kind of maintaining hey, 4 days a week, 4 days, but now we do the supplementary thing if this is something else. Because have you found, didn't you guys make a post recently about running? I think I saw the first.
Yes, a blog about the value of strength training for running.
Correct.
For runners.
That's just always been the market. I wish I could go back in time. I would have tried harder to just tap in, not to the whole market, but there is a segment that I think has been getting enough strength training, injury prevention from everywhere that it makes just logical sense. They just need a formal invitation to do it because they're not going to do it on their own.
Yep.
Yeah. So we'll help those people. We have another piece of content called How to Create Your Perfect Week of Fitness. And it's literally a formula for the individual coming 4 times a week. These should be your splits so that you're hitting the appropriate number of momentum, anaerobic, and durability days each week. And then maybe that 5th day, you're going to deep stretch. And then there's a follow-up piece to the individual who comes on an 8-session-a-month membership twice a week. It's because they are also training for a marathon or just love running or are a power yogi or whatever. So we try and be very prescriptive so that people are getting the most out of their membership. And we find a lot of the 8-session-a-monthers will start on an 8-session and then overuse their membership they've burned through their 8 sessions. And
easy upgrade.
Especially the runners.
Yes.
Ironically. Yep. Especially the runners, because they think they're coming in for injury prevention. They come in, start strength training, often for the first time.
Yeah.
Their split times drop. And they're like, oh shit, I still want to run, but this is actually helping my running performance. And then they start coming in 3-4 times a week. Yeah. Yeah, which is cool.
I want to go to back you being a trainer.
Yeah.
Okay. You're working in commercial real estate at that time? Mm-hmm. Okay. What was the info at the point at which Brandon and Kirk come to you? They're still the full owners of the 2 Charlotte locations and are like, hey, we want you to be a GM. Had they just had a shitty GM experience? Had he never had it? It was just the 2 of them fucking figuring it out as they go. And they're like, we need someone to bring in here. Walk me through how that, because there's a lot of people maybe listening to this that are high up. They're just like, it's the owners and then them.
Yeah.
And they're like, well, how do I get fucking close? I can't be how do I get closer up that ladder? Even if I have to fucking create the position myself.
Yeah.
What did that look like?
So they had opened the 2nd Charlotte studio 6 months prior to approaching me. And there was another GM in place prior to me. She had been with the brand for a long time, but she was in a shorter term GM position, and then she resigned. And they have just opened their second studio, and they're franchising on their own prior to the Z Growth partnership. So they're working with their legacy franchisees and still trying to grow. So like they grow locally, they're growing nationally, and they just need someone to manage the local business for them because they only have so many hours in the day. So they approached me to fill in for that role. And I, at the time, was a part-time trainer. My full-time job, I was I ran the marketing department for the dealership segment of a local accounting firm, which is about as unsexy an industry to be in marketing for. But so the draw was there. I was like very, it appealed to me. I had never considered leaving corporate America. Like that was really scary for me.
How old were you?
I was 25.
Married now at this point?
No.
Not
married.
Just moved in.
Okay.
We just moved in together. No kids, not married.
Fair enough. So why not?
For them, that was an ideal, right? They're looking for someone, and Elizabeth was underperforming. The Elizabeth studio was underperforming. So that was the primary goal. Like we need to like sell the shit out of memberships. We need Elizabeth to perform better. Like just, I think their goal was to put someone young with no marital or kid commitments who could spend time on the weekends and just, grind. And so I stepped in. Like that was it. It was a scary jump, but I jumped, and it was so much fun, and I had the best time.
How much of that position? Because a lot of times when you owned it, like did they have a GM role built out in their head? Or was it just like they both acted as GMs in each of their own capacities at times, and now we had to, but what does that look like when someone else does it?
All three of us were learning together.
Flying the plane while you build it?
Yeah, it was kind of like all right, bitch, let's see what you can do.
Yeah.
You know?
Here's a computer. Figure it out.
Yep.
Yeah.
Now, when I needed support on something, like how do I, we met regularly and they were great soundboards and like mentors for me. Sure. I learned a lot from them, but it was compared to the structure we have in place now, not just locally, but for our owners in terms of structure around the GM position. We were very much shooting from the hip.
Yeah.
And it somehow worked. Managing 2 studios was hard. It was a lot, right? Like
what resource? Like were you going from there? Was it just like you guys just constantly had little 3-person? Brandon Kirch said these meetings constantly and build it out, or was it like how did you think of how do we do this now since there wasn't a proof of concept inside of MADabolic at that point?
We would meet. I want to say weekly was probably like twice a month we would meet, and it was very easy to access them whenever I needed anything. I would just make myself comfortable in their offices in the back South End, and we would, shoot the shit. But I had a lot of free reign to figure it out on my own, which was like great. I grew up a lot and put some really like effective strategies in place that I learned from my previous employer, different industry, but it applied. And my primary strategy coming into this was like we needed to grow. The goal was to like giddy up, right? Let's add more memberships in a hurry. So in my head, the best way to access big populations of people without going, B2C was going B2B. Yeah. So I really spent most of my energy on creating relationships and partnerships with other local businesses, which then ended up turning into this Mad Perks program, because my idea was like, I need to access an audience that through someone else. Like if we partner with Cycle Bar, that's going to give me access to an entire group of people who I know are interested in fitness, who I probably can't access without them. And then, so we, start with complementary fitness. And then we even think about people what kind of smoothie place does a person who spends $200 a month on a MADabolic membership go to? Like probably Green Brothers.
Sure, yeah.
You see, right? So high performing local businesses that our members or target member frequent, and finding ways to partner with those local businesses too, to again access their.
A lot of it was the
audience.
local business, but if you think about kind of the partner for us, fitness, higher earners, people that are willing to spend on lifestyle, fitness, whatever the case may be, she was fucking hell-bent on Lululemon.
Oh yeah,
sure.
Yeah,
Like,
yes.
in there once a week, bringing donuts, bringing coffee, making friends with everybody, inviting them in for, free sessions, all that kind of
their
stuff.
employees working out with us.
Talk to me through that, because I think a lot of people, get like, hey, I want to get a strategic sales partnership with Lululemon. I'm like, it's not a button to push. Yeah. It's not an application to send in. It's literally, you got to fuck with them enough that they internally, they know what you're there for.
Yes.
Like, you're not just showing up with donuts because you have an abundance of donuts.
Of your heart.
Yeah,
right.
yeah. There's that altruism here. It's like, motherfuckers, I get it. I want to fuck with you. Walk people through the grind that is, and the amount of, because they're not no's. It's not like door-to-door sales, you're getting a door slam in your face, but you're going in there and it's like, fuck, am I making dents?
Yeah, so I'd say the biggest tip I could give is to go in there multiple times to do something for them without asking for anything in return. Bringing them donuts, hosting free workouts for them, offering them discounted, a special Lululemon discounted membership. Like, they give our trainers 25% off, like their R&D discount for trainers. So we give all of their employees 25% off any membership. So it's just consistently hitting them with things that, like, we're here for you. I'm not just here to barge in, and because I'm in fitness, you owe me something. And it was learning their names. It was just like I was courting them, like I was trying to date them. And it was doing a lot for them without asking for anything in return.
How long did you think you had to court until it actually, like, the first, like, Lululemon and MADabolic thing happened and you were like, fuck yes, this is paying off?
I bet it was like half a year before it started, like, paying off. Because, and I remember it was game day. The first day I was like, oh, this is kind of working, where I would invite them for free workouts. It was kind of hard to get that assembled, and I just kept going in. And then on game day, they had a few heats, like their Lululemon. I invited them to game day and helped them, schedule into, propped it up as a fun, don't take it too seriously, just come in and have a good time. All of our trainers there. We've got vendors there, like, you can meet new people. And we had like 2 full heats full of Lululemon employees, and that was a cool, like, oh, this is working. Probably half a year.
Yeah, and it's interesting. It's like, because there was only the Lululemon was at the mall in South Park, where we were just talking for everyone's reference points. There wasn't anyone near. You guys were able to get a strategic sales partnership at one point where you had Lululemon gear in-house. I think everyone thinks, oh my God, once that, I've made it. You guys all find, like, it's really nice to have. It doesn't move off the shelves. Like, it's a nice association more than anything else.
Yep. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. It's like, people buy Lululemon stuff, but you're not going to move enough of that for it to move the needle for you. It just elevates the brand level by being on the same stage as that.
Yeah, totally.
I mean,
for us, the difference is, if you, like, I went into their new South End store a month ago, and 2 of their people were wearing MAD shirts on the floor.
Oh, cool.
I was just going to say that's something else we've done.
They didn't know I was coming. They just
they're allowed to
drop a
do
box
that?
full of our crop top shirts
awesome.
in there, and
Fuck yeah.
they're wearing our shit on the floor.
And think about that. That's fucking powerful.
Yeah.
It's one thing to be like an ambassador and have a nice fucking 5x4 fucking photo of yourself hanging up there, but that's them wearing your shit.
The free clothes were nice, but the whole purpose of that relationship for me wasn't for ambassadorship clothes perks. That was really nice, but it was for, like, the 2 businesses propping each other up. If they perceive that you can do something to help them too, it's a lot more frictionless to get that relationship in place. How about the tote bags? Did you ever see the tote bags we had in there?
No.
So we got these MADabolic tote bags created that are basically like knockoffs of the Lululemon, the nice material that everyone loves. And they're black with our MADabolic logo on there. So there have been a handful of days over the past few years where they allow us to come in and give them 100 of our tote bags. And when people check out, they're putting what they check out with a 5 for 5 card inside the MADabolic tote bag with the Lululemon stuff. Like,
I think it's almost like you talked about dating. It is like dating or a marriage. If you start keeping score,
sure.
The marriage fucking tanks. The partnership tanks. Like, you have to be constantly thinking about the other person and trust that they do the same thing. And if you find those partners that approach the same way, then you stick together and it works. Like, not just coffee, Night Swim Coffee, Undercurrent, those guys. We are constantly with them because I can pick up the phone and ask them anything and they'll do it. They can pick up the phone and ask us anything and we'll do it. Lululemon, same thing. Those handful of partners, like, if you just continue to give and give and give without expecting anything return, the right ones will give, and then you stick together.
Yeah.
And it's cool.
It's the right ratio of being selfishly selfless.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, totally.
Yeah, you are, in the origin is walking in there with selfish intentions. But I'm going to be selfless for a very, very extended period of time.
Patient.
Yeah. And again, it's like, all these things are just like brand awareness. And when you get out of the idea that brand awareness has a trackable ROI, it's just like, no, it just, more things happen to me. The more I get out there, I'm cool as fuck, and people know that I'm cool as fuck, and I'm with MADabolic, right? Like, just cool things start happening for you on that front. It is difficult when I talk to, it's like a small business owner, just like Brandon and Kirk were going into Lululemon, probably get busy doing fucking everything, right? It's not until like the team grows and you get someone who has like I don't think I could ever have seen them doing what you did for 6 months to court Lululemon, right?
Brandon is a legacy ambassador.
Is he really?
Yeah.
I did not know that.
He did, I think they for sure did that before they started franchise. So when they first opened, he was a ambassador.
Got it.
So Brandon definitely put in that like face time, but then they started growing and exploding, and they needed someone else to kind of take that over. And that Lululemon store had a complete reorg. Like, there was an entirely new manager down to the to the
you
staff.
Had like Henry and Roman and that entire fucking crew.
Yeah.
Interesting. So, all right, so you're the GM now. You're looking over the two locations. Talk to me now. The next biggest transition for you was getting a role in corporate. Post, was that like GM and then did corporate happen first? Or did they give you ownership?
Ownership happened
first.
Okay,
so let's kick up to ownership. Because again, your trajectory up there is so interesting of just part-time trainer, boom, GM
client,
over two.
client.
Client, part-time trainer, GM over 2 clubs, and then this partial ownership. Now, I love that strategy as an owner. Is like, you don't want you going there. Golden handcuffs, right? Like, I need to lock her in, right?
Yeah.
You're a flight risk, bitch. I can't have you leaving. Walk me through that. Did you know that was coming? What was your initial thoughts? And if they had not offered something like that, because you can only be GM for so long.
There's a ceiling.
There is a ceiling. How long, if something wouldn't have came about, before you would have maybe said deuces?
You know what? The prospect of leaving never crossed.
Really?
I never reached a point at that time in my life where leaving was on my mind. I was having such a good time. I was paid very well once I started capping, accessing my bonus structure.
And talk about that. Your bonus structure.
So there was also no ceiling to how much money I could make. So I had a base salary that was like
$40K.
Okay. Around 40. Okay.
Yeah. And then my bonus structure was there. It was basically, there was a break even, like our expense line was there.
Sure.
And then anything we made beyond that, I was bonused 10% of that delta.
Okay.
To a certain point. And then if we crossed another threshold, I was bonused 15% of that delta. So that started adding up very quickly. And there was really no ceiling there, because the more members we made, the more money I could make. And I was like very happy with that compensation plan, and started ending up making more in my bonus than my actual salary. Which was a really smart way for them to kind of like keep me motivated and dangle this carrot and keep me working for memberships, because I understood that memberships is what would create that. outcome for me.
Did they ever encourage you to buy something really, really nice when you first started making bonus money? Typically in sales, I would always encourage my top sales guy to go like, no, you should definitely go get yourself a car.
Oh, so
something that's got a recurring payment. It's like, oh, fuck, I got to keep this thing going. I would always strongly encourage them like, no, of course a boat's a great idea.
Yeah.
No, they didn't. They did not.
I'd love that.
No. So, okay, ownership happened first, and I never actually thought this was, I just will never forget how that conversation even started. And I can't remember the beginning of that conversation, but it basically ended in me kind of like fucking around with Kirk, being like, well, why don't you let me buy in as an owner? And he was like, really? And I was like, really? Like his response, his like really was suggestive that they would be open to that. And I was like, are you for real? Mm-hmm. And then that started our ownership conversation. And
what did that look like?
Multiple meetings, sitting down, figuring out the right structure.
We officially bought in January 1st of 2020. I believe Z-Growth invested in the franchising side of the business summer of 2019. Yeah. So they had just had a valuation done on the Charlotte business to understand kind of what the franchise was worth. So I think we just worked off of that valuation. And we applied, we basically took the same logic of that valuation and kind of moved it forward based on where the business was at that time.
And it was an agreement to work us towards equal ownership. Starting off as minority, like 10% owners, and then deferring
we paid market, or we had a market valuation at the time. Put a down payment so the valuation was $900,000 for the 2 studios at the time. We put a $100,000 down payment for 11% equity. And then with our distributions each year, we had the right to purchase additional equity at that same valuation.
So instead of taking distro, you would just go ahead and defer it?
So exactly. So we didn't get a sweetheart deal on the valuation necessarily, but it was an interest-free way for us to continue to purchase equity. So it worked out. It was golden handcuffs in that sense. It wasn't just some market deal where they tried to make as much money as they could.
It was a very friendly.
Yeah, it was great.
Process. Yeah,
it was great.
It was awesome.
So that was January 2020. Obviously, COVID hits.
I get pregnant with our first.
She gets
kiddo.
Pregnant. Yeah.
Okay. And the reality, remember how I said how me as a GM at 25 was a lot more appealing because didn't have any kids and limited responsibilities? I wasn't stupid in knowing that once I had a kid, I wasn't going to have as much time on the weekends, or the GM role just was harder for me to fulfill. And I actually came back to it for about 3 months after I had come off maternity leave. And the business was doing fine. It's just, that was the point at which I was kind of growing out of the GM role. It wasn't before ownership that I was like,
She got to a point,
leave, but
I'm speaking for you a little bit. She got to the point where obviously we were part owners in the business. Her email signature technically would have still said general manager, but she was a pretty strategic general manager overseeing 2 studios, right? I mean, she was kind of sort of, along with Kirk, playing the role of day-to-day owner of the business. So for you to continue to fulfill kind of the in-the-weeds GM stuff, it was kind of starting to become below the highest and best use of your time based on where your skill set was going.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. And I was just growing out of that operational, the super in-the-weeds operational capacity. So then they're exploding on the franchising side of things and they need more bodies over there. So they carved out a role for me to come help. And the original title was Director of Culture and Experience. Yeah. And the idea was for me to basically replicate what I did in Charlotte, turn it, package it up into a playbook and then teach other franchisees how to do it. Which was fun. That role ended up turning into something more. I still was doing a lot of creative brand messaging stuff.
So when
I was doing
you started doing your social media thing, really getting into that and being the face for the Charlotte market, MADabolic.
Yeah.
Heavily, even before that.
Yeah.
So that just kind of naturally leaned that way then?
Yes. Yeah. So I was trying to teach them social media. I'm now their partner during pre-sale, which was brand new to me. I'd never opened a studio, and now I'm walking them through pre-sale and trying to teach them selling. And it became clear that we needed more bodies on the franchising side of things. So after about a year of that role, which I really appreciate, Brandon and Kirk wanted to help me kind of along my path with MADabolic towards what I was really good at and what I really loved. And turns out the analytical systems, numbers, system side of thing is not really my strong suit. I'm not a systems person. When I managed Charlotte, like I said, we were kind of shooting from the hip. I was shooting from the hip. So trying to teach people systems as someone who's not really a systems person, it wasn't the best role for me. Sure. So we have someone else doing that, Beth, who is far better at it than I was. And now I'm in this very brand specific, controlling the messaging and the marketing and our image and our media and our social media. And I work with franchisees on that side to help them with their social medias. And hopefully when you see different MADabolic social media accounts, they're all kind of looking similar and saying similar things. So I'm, helping with that.
Go back to the partnership thing. Brandon, Kirk 50-50 prior to making you this offer?
Mm. Yeah.
So did they each dilute down by 5? Mm. And then did you guys have to have a conversation? Because if you decide to put all of our distro in, did they kind of have, they kind of have an idea what they were willing to dilute themselves down to?
We were going to get to a third. Okay. But obviously the distribution slowed a little bit with COVID because we were outright closed for 4 months.
Yep.
And even coming back, I don't think we fully recovered until January of 22, maybe mid 22. We got to, it was March of 2022.
I blacked out that time of
that we got back to where we were. And then April, May, June of 22 were elevated from pre-COVID levels.
And before we even got to a third, we started the conversations of us to buy them out entirely.
So our distributions had slowed based on our initial projections just because the business was generating less cash. So since commercial real estate had moved in, I knew I kind of wanted to work for myself in some capacity. Wasn't sure what that was. Had gone to work for a startup, was on the management team, loved it. That was kind of reaching the end of its road. And so we approached Kirk and Brandon about...
we approached them about wanting to open a third and what that would look like. We were like, we want to open a third. Charlotte can tolerate it. Lanny will run it, but how is this going to work from the ownership side of things? Because a third doesn't quite make sense if he's going to come in and do the lion's share of the work.
Yeah.
And then within that conversation, they were pretty upfront. They were like, we're tired.
Sure.
Yeah.
And we don't want to take on another personal guarantee on a lease. And totally fair. But then they also respected our drive to want to blow up our headquarter market. Mm-hmm. And so within that hour-long meeting, we then started talking about, would you guys consider
purchasing the whole portfolio?
Would you consider selling us the entire portfolio? Which, similar to when Kirk was like, really? And when they didn't say no, I was like, oh shit. Yeah. This is I never in my wildest dreams thought I would walk in as a client, even when I was a part-time trainer, that I'm going to own all of it. They're going to give this to me. Well,
give this.
They're going to
exchange it.
Sell it. Yeah, they're going to sell it to me. But so that was, so then we went down that path.
It's a wild journey. And so from partial owner where you guys are buying in and then to this, how did that look? Because the numbers start getting a little, it's okay, now we're just going to buy the remainder of so whatever you guys are at, they're at 40, 20 or whatever, 45, 40, whatever it came out to be. So you just have to buy your remaining 90%? Is that essentially
so basically the way it worked is after kind of figuring out the mechanics and getting to a point where we all agreed, we wanted to take them out and they wanted to be bought out fully, paid in cash at closing, no financing, nothing. They're out.
No owner financing, nothing.
No. Yep. Yeah, which I 100% agree with, and I would have done the same thing. The first step was just to come up with a number, valuation of the business. And we got to that number. It was much higher than the original valuation that we put on.
And it's just for the Charlotte market. We're not talking about the entire franchise system.
Just Charlotte.
2 locations. So that number...
A couple of years later, though, right? I mean, how many years later? The first valuation was in 2019.
Yeah, 2.5.
Now we're talking 2022.
Yeah, 2.5 years.
So what was the how do we mathematically get to that big of a jump?
We took I think in 2020, the valuation method was like prior 3 years financials. And you basically took, I want to say like the average annual revenue and applied a multiplier to it.
Okay.
Or sorry, average
EBITDA multiplier to it.
Yeah, not revenue. An EBITDA multiplier. Obviously, with this happening in summer of 2022, 3 years financials doesn't quite work.
No, yeah.
So we took, I think, trailing 12 months, and maybe even weighted recent months a little bit.
It's tough. You got 2020 in there. Like, what do you do with that?
Correct. And obviously, this is 2022, so COVID's not like fully behind. Like, there's still some thought of like, dude, what if this happens again?
Yeah.
They're still talking about like, oh, everybody needs boosters. There could be an additional strain, wear masks on planes, all that kind of shit. So there was still a little bit of like buyer fear. Yeah. So anyway, we took trailing 12 months, applied that same EBITDA multiplier that we had used originally, and came to a number that was pretty close to double.
Pretty close to double? Okay.
Yeah.
So under 3, or no?
Under 2.
Under 2.
Under 2. Under 2. Okay.
Yeah. And obviously we don't have that kind of cash. As much as I'd love to pretend we did. So
that'd be dope.
SBA loan.
7A?
Yes.
7A loan.
Now, so we agreed on the valuation. Part of that was, we still had equity in the business. The way we did our distributions is they were kind of distributed annually. So we agreed to true up our distributions as of the sale date. Or no, I'm sorry, as of the agreement date, which was, let's call it August 1st.
Got it.
And so distributions from Jan 1 to August 1, we purchased any remaining equity and then had to pay them in cash at the closing. And so fortunately with the SBA, we had at that point had more than 10% equity in the business, so we didn't have to put any cash down. So the whole thing was financed, which was nice.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Good deal. I mean, did you at least get in prior to interest rates going silly?
They were rising, but not crazy.
Yeah.
So I want to say our interest rate is like 6.8.
Oh, wow. Yeah. I'd fucking suck a dick for a 6% interest rate right now.
Yeah.
Jesus Christ.
Yeah.
Good for
now
you.
it's a pain in the ass. Like even,
oh my God.
It's SBA, it is fucking brutal. And we worked with a big bank too, which I would not recommend.
Yeah. Yeah. When I did the 504 loan with the SBA, I was looking back on paperwork, 3.25. When I bought, like, it's just like,
wow.
Never. Will we ever again?
Yeah.
See? Like, is that a thing? Like,
man.
And everything, and what sucks is that you had that experience, like, our parents, like, they're like 18% interest rates.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, that's stupid. That's not even like, that's like dinosaurs.
Right.
Like, they're probably not real. There's just pictures.
Yeah.
But fuck, like when you've done a 3% interest rate, it's almost hard for you to even think about doing business at a 7 or an 8. I'm like, no, I'll just wait.
Yeah.
Like, I'm probably going to wait
forever.
Like,
yeah.
I just have to accept this as a new fucking world.
Yeah.
And it's got to change.
That's right.
When you guys were buying, how much did a third location, a fourth location factor into that? Would you have done the deal and stayed at 2?
No. I mean, that just, it wasn't even part of the conversation because we knew we wanted to.
Yeah.
Sure.
We knew we wanted to do a third.
And a fourth.
Economically, like it would have worked. I mean, candidly, we valued the business based on 2, right?
Yeah.
Like there wasn't
The math would have checked out. Because opening a third is
correct.
2 steps back financially, 3 to 4, 5, 6, 7 steps forward on a long enough timeline type scenario.
Yeah.
But it's like, but it's interesting too with you guys, and ages again. So Landon, how old are you now?
I'm 32. 32.
Almost 33.
Almost 33. You guys are like 38 is still same age. It gets to be an interesting time though when you start thinking about time horizons of retirement, blah, 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 blah. Like, and even as a GM, I'm assuming you didn't have like a 401k match going on at that time.
Not.
No. So it's like, you start thinking, I mean, that's a risky to purchase this. But you think about 2 locations. It's okay. I mean, in your early 30s, that's still plenty doable. But how much of that weighed in, like, I see Brandon and Kirk now. They need a lot more facial skincare than they need. It's aged them. I mean, owning these things is fucking aging of you because you are in a service-based thing. Yeah. It isn't the customer, it's the employee.
Yep.
And there's like this constant, I have to be able to deal and talk and communicate and negotiate and like and dislike and train with so many different personalities. It's incredibly draining. Mm-hmm. With a third location, how many employees is that now?
We're at about 25.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's a good amount though.
Yeah.
It's a good amount.
It is.
We're down in GM right now. I saw the post.
She's still in place.
She's still in place. Yeah. So
but
she's
we're
going
looking
to
for, yes.
Yeah. She's going to ride out kind of until we find a new hire. It's a very friendly transition.
Yeah.
We're fully supportive of her. This is a personal kind of life balance decision for her to step away.
Yeah.
She'll still train with us.
I thought the post was really well written. I thought it was a great way. Do you guys ever play around with that? Like, do we make an announcement when somebody churns within the business? Now, someone of her her tenure of how, because she's been with you guys for a while, right?
Yeah, she's been with us for 3-4 years.
Total? More than that. I'd say, maybe 4 or 5.
Yeah.
She's pre-COVID.
And for reference point,
yeah, that's right.
And I'll have them throw, you guys made a post.
Yep.
So I'm just saying, hey, work-life balance, just wanted to spend more time with family. We support her 100%. We're looking for a GM. Now, obviously, some people don't like to announce the employee churn. Mm-hmm. I'm always like, well, you're going to announce it on LinkedIn.
They're going to know.
Yeah, you're gonna, and they're not going to be here.
Better get in front of it. She's still going to be, get in front of it so people aren't like, what the fuck is happening in Elizabeth?
Yeah.
And it's a recruiting matter because someone might know somebody who's a fucking dope GM at SolidCore.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right? They just had a falling out with their boss.
Yeah.
Right? So you guys even, was it a referral fee?
Huh?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Tell me about that. I love that.
Yeah, so
it's Lanny's idea and it's new.
Yeah, we basically are offering $1,000 referral credit to anybody that refers our next employee. So if it's a trainer that refers our next GM, we pay $1,000 cash. If it's a member, we basically take $1,000 off their membership until they reach credit. For us, it's
speed.
Well worth it. Yeah, to make sure we find the right person and we're casting the widest net that we can. And it's a good way for to continue to keep our members engaged.
Sure.
Even, right? And feel like they're participating in the business and a part of our growth story. And
it's a unique touch point for a member to email you and you're like, it's either cancellation, change out the billing, they're pissed about something. Oh, actually, my cousin's moving here and he did blah, blah, blah in the industry up in New York, whatever.
Yeah.
It's just a unique, different touch point as far as that goes. How is the search going? Like, how do you think about finding employees? Because again, the one thing I do not miss about this at all is the employee factor.
People, yeah.
I love people. I hated the everyday.
Managing.
Yeah. Well, it's not even, I wanted to provide for you. I want to make sure everything is awesome. And I want you to continue to like where you're going, but there is a ceiling. Mm-hmm. And we'll talk about how would you guys ever do golden handcuffs on someone here later. But like, how do you think about the employee factor, like in the constant churn and some of the drama that can or cannot come with that? Mm-hmm. Is that the worst part about the job?
It's the most both emotionally draining and probably emotionally fulfilling.
Okay.
It's just the most volatile, right? There's nothing more satisfying for me than to watch one of our managers thrive and grow. Like it's super, super rewarding because you see how much pride they take from that growth themselves. And that's cool that you're able to provide an environment that allows them to grow. The other side is it's super fucking stressful. Like no one will ever match your standard as an owner, period. And you just have to accept that. The question is, how much below that standard do you tolerate? Those are my sleepless nights, is just trying to kind of solve the Tetris puzzle of motivation and accountability, right? And making sure that, like you said, people enjoy working here. They're motivated to work here. They're motivated to do their best. We have enough support and systems to help them do their best. But if they start to fall short or are not meeting our standard or not embodying our core values, we have that honest, hard conversation to help get them there. For you talking about churn, this will not be the case forever. We have not I think we were talking last night, Mad Charlotte has fired one employee in the last 10 years.
Yeah.
Back in 2019.
Is that mechanism due to, if I don't fit here, I just resign and I bow out gracefully? Or is it just like, we don't hire the wrong fit?
We've been super fortunate to hire awesome people.
Yeah.
Top to bottom.
What's the skill there? Because that's not you. That is not common at all. What does someone have to do to have that kind of a churn rate on the HR side?
I think there's good and bad of hiring from your member base.
Yeah.
What's the bad?
The bad is smaller pool, right? Again, 1.5 people in Charlotte, 750 candidates to hire. Like you're just not casting the widest net possible. The good is those people are here for a reason. We are not a down the middle brand. We're pretty loud and vocal about what we believe in, and the people who come here, pay us money, that resonates, right? Some part of the programming, the staff, the training culture, the training program, like something about that resonates with them for them to continue to pay us $2,000 a year, whatever the case may be. So you kind of check that core values alignment pretty quickly. We have the opportunity from hiring in our member base, we have the opportunity to see them long-term, not just in a hiring environment where you're getting kind of the Instagram highlights and the prettiest face or the smiliest face that they can put on. And, they tell you what you want to hear. You see them at 5:30 a.m., after their fucking dog died or whatever. You see them at their highs and their lows. Yeah. And so we know exactly who we're getting. And on the flip side, they know exactly what they're getting, right? Because they see our trainers, they have relationships with our trainers, they kind of understand the working environment that we have. So it's just, we just know each other really well getting into it.
Hiring side, that's generally a part-time trainer.
So I was just going to say that I think what's also maybe more unique about our employee setup is how many part-time employees we have.
Correct.
And this is a fun place for them. It's a fun job. I mean, I say that like it's still a fucking business and we want them to like respect the standards we have in place for our employees, but this is a fun third place for them.
Sure.
Mm-hmm.
So I do think that part-time model factors into the retention.
And to be honest, like
for our trainers.
Yeah, like at the pace we want, the business has grown steadily over the last 12 years, right? It was just South End for the first 6, right? And it incrementally grew and grew and grew. And so you'd add, a trainer or two a year, and then Elizabeth opens. That kind of incrementally grew. Mm-hmm. 7 years later, we opened a new studio. 6 years later, we opened a new studio. But now we're in a place where we probably want to start to open a studio every 18 to 24 months. And within those studios, potentially creating more career paths than just part-time trainer or GM. So we are going to start to hire at a more aggressive pace, which means only ever looking at your members, like the negatives of having that capped pool outweigh the positives of, well, at least you get to know them really well. So we now, for the first time, just in the last few months, have started to pretty heavily recruit outside. But because we've gotten ahead of it, which I know that's something that you preach, we still have the benefit of getting to know these people. Sure. Like with trainers in particular, which is what we've been staffing for to date. We put the onus on them, like, hey, if they apply and we like their resume or their cover, whatever.
Sure.
Come in for a free 5 days. Let me know what works for you, and I'll come meet someone from our management team. Will come meet you at your first class. That puts the onus on them to actually show up and come to the gym, which weeds out a lot of people. So I would say half the people just never show up.
Yeah.
So, okay, they're not serious. Move on, right? Whereas if it was like, hey, 15-minute Zoom interview, maybe they show up and they kind of play the part and they get the job and they're like, fuck this, I don't want to come. So that's a good weed out. They go through their 5 days, ideally come in 3 times, which we tell them, like there is a buy-in from them. If we feel good about them, they feel good about us, we put them on a 30-day free membership and kind of let them come and go. Because again, we want them to buy into what we do. And if they train consistently over those 30 days, if we see them interacting with members and not just coming in, standing in the corner and then fucking off and getting out, they develop rapport within staff, then we kind of move them on. Either we extend them into another free 30 days, or we're like, hey, this is who we want to hire. Let's bring them on.
Sure.
We started that process, let's call it January 1st. To be clean, we've probably had 90 people apply. We've probably invited 20 to train with us. I bet 12 have shown up. We're moving forward right now with 1. So
yeah,
a lot of work.
Yeah, for 1.
But that 1 is going to be fucking awesome. We're super excited about him, and he is very, very bought in, and we know exactly what we're getting out of him.
Yeah.
Do you like the part-time model? Like if you had 2 options, many part-timers, few full-timers, which one? And there's pros and cons to both. You can find people running each model successfully.
We'll do both.
We'll always have both. Yeah.
Yep.
But part of the intent is to find more full-time people that can either track into a performance-specific role full-time, or maybe want to track into an operational role, right? So we're trying to use our training staff as a pipeline for the true full-time people. Like the guy right now who's in the onboarding process, he'll still coach probably 5 to 10 classes at an Orange Theory that's 30 minutes away. Not competitive, we don't worry about it, and he'll coach probably 10-ish classes with us.
Has Matt always taken that stance? I feel like that would be kind of an aggressive thing typically, like, eat a dick, get the fuck out of here. Orange Theory? No way, we're not hiring that motherfucker.
We've never done that in Charlotte.
Yes, you're right. You're exactly right. Yep.
Yeah.
Totally.
Why bend?
Because this is harsh to any Orange Theory owners that might be out there listening. I guess it's all private equity at this point. They're not competitive. We don't compete with Orange Theory.
Sure.
We're just in a different space. And it's 30 minutes away. It's in a suburb.
Do you find it's harder to hire people these days, post-COVID? Have you found a lack of density in the hireable market for trainers?
I'll defer to you on that. I don't have pre-COVID.
We've never had problems
hiring.
But
again, we've pulled from our member base. So
we've never had problems hiring them.
Yeah,
that's right. About the franchise
they're
systems
great.
Before they open. Are you guys finding any issues there?
Yeah, hiring is definitely for new locations. Sure. Hiring is the hardest part for a reason. For reasons that we kind of just outlined, and trying to like create as much buy-in as possible, and solving the puzzle for like, well, how do you do that when you don't actually have the space for them to come in and like, get to know the culture. So we're constantly fine-tuning and tinkering the hiring process in the pre-opening phase, and it's getting much, much better. And we're working with recruiters for owners that need it, and it's getting better. And we're super upfront about that. A prospect comes in for discovery day and they want to know what some of the biggest pain points are. Yeah. And hiring is like, we're very upfront about really that. Tough. And because that's one thing that we can't just like get on our horse and go hire for you. Sure. Like you have to get off your ass and go recruit and find people. Yeah. And you have to go take class at Orange Theory, at F45, at places you maybe don't want to go take class at to like see people in action that you want to try and recruit.
Do you guys want someone that comes in? So is it better to have someone come in? I've coached. I'm now currently part-time coaching at Orange Theory. Because then you got a belief break and you got to be like, okay, well, everything you do at Orange Theory, I'd like for you to put in a box and burn it.
Yeah.
Okay? Because when you walk in here, it's going to be done like this.
Yes.
Or is it easier to take that member who's kind of been in trainer training in a very informally kind of way, because you've been coaching them on how to move to your standard. Now it's coaching them how to coach other people, how to move to our standard. What do you prefer?
I prefer the member.
Okay.
Who moves well and is athletic and can smile and talk to people, over someone who's maybe coming from a concept that we have to break.
It's tough.
That hard to break their understanding. I prefer honestly, I love a former athlete that moves well, grew up in a team environment and is coachable. And you can find those in a lot of different concepts.
High character.
Yeah.
Low ego.
Yep.
Relatable. In whatever form that takes. If that's an outside person, if that's an inside person, those are the most important things. The technical side, we can train. I will say, for us, we are so product focused, product and service focused. Like we take our training program very seriously. Like we don't try to do what sells, right? We try to differentiate ourselves based on the quality of service and the results. And so as the market gets more crowded, we do feel like having more accredited and knowledgeable people on staff definitely helps us. But like, we're not curing fucking cancer. You don't need a PhD to coach a class.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
What's harder from a hiring perspective, when you're hiring from someone from a different concept, whether it's an F45 or an Orange Theory or like a CrossFit, you can get great coaches for MADabolic from those concepts only if they are ready to leave those workouts. It's a lot harder to create the buy-in from someone who is maybe still coaching part-time at CrossFit. If they're still like really in the CrossFit.
That's their own fitness methodology.
And that's what they do. And that is a lot harder to pull them over.
Yeah.
And that's where I think the 30-day thing has worked really well for us. Again, I mentioned this guy who came in. He's like, this is it. All the training and stuff I do on my own. I don't take Orange Theory classes. I just coach there. But all the training I do on my own, like, it's this. This is what I love. We have another trainer, our lead trainer here, who owned a CrossFit in Oklahoma City, but had, I guess, followed Mad, probably actually maybe through you.
Cool.
And so he applied to be the GM with us. He was shutting down his studio, moving back to Charlotte, and we got to know each other via Zoom a little bit. And again, same thing. He's like, I love the content you guys put out. It's exactly what I believe in fitness. Oh, how do you train on your own? He's like, I do mostly kettlebell and dumbbell work. I don't really touch a barbell. A lot of single-sided, contralateral. We're like, perfect.
Yeah.
You're great. Like, and he comes, he's
ex-entrepreneurs, I think, are great employees.
That one employee that he mentioned that we like actively let go,
Yeah.
she was not ready to let go of CrossFit.
Got it. Yep.
And it just, there wasn't the buy-in, and she was,
Yeah. Wasn't going to work.
Yeah.
It's so funny too. It's because when someone's not ready, they're not all into your methodology, right? And that's not what they want to do. I've even been to the point, it's like, you know, you guys give it to a free membership. And I've even been in some scenarios where I've consulted someone, I'm like, don't make them be a customer. Mm-hmm. Make them pay.
Yeah.
Like, here's how the deal. You pay me to be here because you want to be here. And then eventually I'll pay you to be here, right? But I need some level of fucking buy-in. You got to actually genuinely want to, if I don't give you this job, would you come work out at MADabolic?
Yeah.
And they're like, no, I probably wouldn't do it. Then like, good interview. It's over. Like, I mean, that's literally, the amount of buy-in. We vote with our dollars.
Totally.
You know? And so I'm like, well, even if you don't hire me, is it weird if I still work out here? Now I'm kind of interested in you.
Well, that trickles down to member retention too. Like, your trainers need to be training on the floor for like, what does that do for a member? They like, well, what else do you do for fitness?
Sure.
Nothing else, just this. Like, what else do you do for fitness? Well, I go over to the CrossFit across the street and get my barbell work. Like, that's a lot less, that's not great from a retention standpoint. Like,
Members love when you get into a class too.
Yeah.
Like getting to work out next to a Kirk, imagine, or when you they absolutely love it.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it does remind them that you are a chef that tastes your own cooking.
Yeah.
Right? Kind of scenario.
Yeah.
Where do you see, and this is more like an industry thing, and you guys have a good lens because you're watching this franchise system grow as far as that goes. We've talked about this a lot. We've got, a lot of more of these open gym models opening up. Everything in fitness is cyclical. The entire industry, right? It was like open gym was real heavy, Arnold 80s, and then we got, curves, and then CrossFits, and then boutique. And it's like, it's always going to swing. That would never, not one ever goes away. Nothing ever drops off the face of the earth.
Right.
You're obviously incorporating and being cosmopolitan. Like, no, if you do other things, this is how you work us in, that kind of scenario. The level of education that I think boutique gives to the average customer that's been here, that's 5 years or more, it's a really high level of education. And with a high level of education, you can get snobby on what you want. When people first come, they probably just come whatever fucking day it is. I don't cherry pick. I don't text my buddy who went to 5 a.m. be like, was it anaerobic or was it durability or whatever? They just fucking come in because they don't know any better. Do you find that the 5-year tenured member who does know better is like, listen, I fucking like durability and momentum, fuck anaerobic. And you find the more experienced person who knows better and is like, this is how I want to train. Because before, when you don't have that training age and you just come in here and it's like, I don't know what the fuck I'm doing. Do you guys find a level of self-education or a training age in your clients where they almost become their own worst enemy in a sense? Like, they start like, oh, I know what I'm doing. I know more than I think I might know, and start cherry picking workouts. We hear that a lot in the CrossFit world and stuff like that, where the more a client stays, the higher their training IQ goes. The higher their training IQ goes, the more opinions they have of the workout. And then that becomes a retention drop-off where someone who has been out-educated, they think they know.
I think that's also, I think the affiliate model plays a role in that too, though, where they understand that owner can create whatever workouts they want, and maybe they can do the same thing. Whereas like, we don't have that.
Yeah, we have this 52-week schedule.
This is the fucking workout.
Yeah.
It's the workout everywhere.
City,
this is the schedule.
Yep.
And there's nothing else like this. It's not like you can go down the street and be like, oh, that other concept kind of did like MADabolic, but they're better. And what if I combine the best of both?
I'm going to go to CrossFit Gym because they do more squatting than this CrossFit.
Correct.
So I can like think of a few clients who
skip anaerobic.
Yeah, I might skip anaerobic because not all the time, but like, it's anaerobic today and I feel like shit and I'm not going to.
Hungover.
Or they know it's yard sale, which is our minute on, minute off. And for sure the hardest anaerobic workout we have. And they're texting the members and they're like, it's yard sale. And they're like, I'm not going. But I would say by and large, we're not getting members who think that they know more than us or that their training IQ elevates over time because we are educating them on the fundamentals of, strength training and why the difference in stimulus like works in their overall results between M, A, and D days, proper nutrition, proper recovery. But I don't think I've encountered an interaction with a client who thinks they know more than we do and tries to alter the schedule.
And I think that happens when progress stops. And for us, like progress doesn't. I've been training here 7 years full time. I just did game day Saturday after having done it in October, and I'm 32, and my numbers are still getting better 7 years in, which is crazy. And I played college sports. It's not like I was coming from zero.
Sure.
Like I started here and I'm still getting better. So like it works. What can I fucking complain about that's not working?
It's so funny because when I think about you guys and like a customer comes in here and you're sitting there and I've seen you got the briefs you guys do with the board. It's more about this is what we're doing today. I'll go and observe at a CrossFit gym and it could like a whiteboard brief for them could be, you could have a kid go on a 15-minute monologue about like, what we're doing. And it's like, these fucking just came to work out.
But that's funny. Yeah.
But you're starting to feed them some more of these little tidbits of information. And the more you like, just kind of like in marketing, the more you say, the more someone can find fault with or not agree with or not connect with. Less is more in marketing, right?
Yes.
And I'm like, kind of like this too. Like you want to educate the clients, but not to the degree where they're going to start being like, based on that periodization schedule you guys had, like.
So it's actually funny. Like we use this a lot in that first client interaction.
Sure.
But we're starting to like, depending on who the person is, you walk them over to that even after their first class and you see their body, they see them stiffen and they're like, what is this? Fuck am I looking at? Like we're even like, I'd say we're pretty good at succinctly explaining the program, but depending on where that person is coming from, like not everyone, I'd say more leads than not are coming in here with an advanced understanding of like anaerobic thresholds and like
how to hinge and
like you say, unilateral movement on a durability day and they're like, So we're starting to like try and, I don't want to say water it down, but like make that first class just much
less jargon,
more disarming. And
it's a lot to take in your first time doing it. I always tell like, it was always male owners. I'm like, go, like they're having a hard time closing, like they're just talking too much. Go take a yoga class.
Yeah.
And I'm like, when you like,
that's right.
Because you're in there and you're nervous. Am I doing this right? What's Warrior 2? Am I going to fart? Like fucking like, you have no idea. And then at the very end, if they wanted to sit down and talk to you about the different, like the cheese and all this shit, you'd be like, no, what the fuck, lady? I don't know.
Yeah.
Like it can be overwhelming. And I've loved the simplicity of the programming style with like, you guys have never done like a behind the scenes of Brandon and Kirk sitting there doing the program, like and breaking it down to the granular level. Because I don't think the average client wants that or needs that. There might be a couple nerds in the group and a couple coaches, and that's completely fine. But I think sometimes we just give, especially in this boutique thing, we give a little bit too much fucking information that's not needed, and it likely is going to cause you not a problem, but maybe a rebuttal from a client down the road, or for the CrossFit gym or whatever, that like changes their programming methodology halfway, which happens every couple of years for a CrossFit gym. It's like, well, what the fuck are you doing? Versus this level of consistency.
Even like just the visual of the floor makes it simple to break down like what they can expect. I'm not sitting here ringing off like, all right, well, this is how we accomplish progressive overload in a group setting. But it's like pretty fucking easy to see 5 different stations of the same movement and the weights are getting heavier. And over time, you start here and you do this for a few months and you're coming 4 times a week. In a couple months, you can now move up here. Like that's a lot easier for the average fitness consumer to grasp.
Those cunts now have slits in the sides of them?
It's amazing.
Bro. The amount of fucking ballistic blocks, the scratches on my arms I have from carrying ballistic blocks.
So simple.
Our South End locations are the old school ones, and our trainers always bitch over them.
I swear. I swear companies like that, and like even they have the iPhone 23 ready to go. Oh, they're just gonna like Rogue had that mold, and they're like, Nah, let's make it shittier first. Because then we'll sell a bunch of the shitty ones, and then we have a revived version.
And then they're gonna buy new ones.
100%. It's not like this came to Bill Henniger in the middle of the night like a vision. He's like, oh no, that's a great idea. Make it worse for the first time through. All the studios will buy them again because it's that much of a fucking better place.
Yes.
Where do you guys see in okay, so you're in the MADabolic franchise system, you guys having 3 units. The next highest unit, largest market density wise was that DC at 5 or Texas at?
DC at 5.
DC at 5, because that's a state. Is Houston, how many? Is there another state that has 3? Are there a city with 3?
Houston, Vinny, our Houston owner, I think, owns the rights to 3.
But not open.
Not open.
Sorry. So there are...
there are 2 in Raleigh, different owners.
Mm-hmm. The Dallas, the West Plano owner is currently in build out for his second in the Dallas area.
How much does Z Growth and the franchise HQ lean on you guys, like as you guys gather experience to then help educate not only them, but also future multi, and again, from a franchise system, I'm sure Z Growth don't want to be selling off onesies just like one-offs all the time. They want to get some multi-unit owners in here.
Yep.
But one of the things that, has made that very hard to sell for MADabolic is you guys haven't had a lot of multi-unit owners to advertise. You just have single unit owners.
Yes.
So do you guys have a lot of conversations with Z Growth and HQ as to like, okay, at 3, it's a different game than 2 because of this big thing. And at 5, holy fuck, it's a way different game than 3 because of this thing.
Yeah, I mean, even like a pre-opening model, I don't know that we're the first ones to do that kind of free workout series, but we probably invested the most heavily in that. And now that's the corporate model is like free workouts. And then I think digital advertising, probably a little bit more robust than what we did as well. Yeah. It also, for us, founders sit in Charlotte, Finley's in Charlotte, Beth, who works in kind of the pre-opening phase, she's a trainer with us. So it's not necessarily us sitting down and having a monthly debrief with the corporate team.
Sure.
They just fucking see what we do, take what works and go pull it. So some of the stuff that they pull from us, I might not even know about.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, I mean, the information goes upstream too, right? And that's one thing I just had Rick on the podcast, and I love the guys. It's like, they're always willing to, Brandon and Kirk could ever speak to the ownership of owning 5 locations. They never own 5 locations, right? Like there's just certain franchisees that are going to actually have a breadth and depth of experience that even HQ can't speak to. So it's nice too in a franchise system because they're, say like at 45's when it's a downstream information base.
Yep.
There is nothing being sent upstream.
Yeah.
People are trying to send it upstream, but it's just getting knocked the fuck back down. No one's listening. So it's nice like in a franchise model like this where information is readily accepted 100%. Upstream to the mothership.
100%.
Yes.
We
learn a lot from other locations.
As an owner, I love it. I think if I went into the F45 model, I would fucking hate it. It is the right mix of systematized and entrepreneurial, right? There's enough. If all the problems were already solved for me, this would not be fun. I wouldn't be having a good time. Like I didn't get into business ownership to just like run a fucking playbook with no wiggle room and no creative license or operational flexibility. Like I like being able to solve some of the problems myself. But they do know what they're doing, and they have a lot of systems that work and a lot of processes that work and vendor relationships and software systems and a brand voice and a program that fucking works. Like there's enough infrastructure there that makes it easy. And again, for us, like you go figure out how to operate, run your people, kind of take the proven sales model and lead gen system that works, kind of make it your own. It is the perfect balance for me of kind of operational creative license with structure and support, especially as a first-time business owner.
Yep.
So I love the balance personally.
I want to ask you, go back to the HR thing for a second. Would you ever deploy that golden handcuff strategy in a location?
I think we are open to anything. I wouldn't say that we have hard plans to. I think if we have, part of it is us growing, right? So our org structure at 3 will look different than our org structure at, let's say, 6. Let's say we acquire a MADabolic in another market. That changes how we operate a little bit. So there will be growth trajectory for people. On the performance side, we brought, Dakota was a trainer, then GM, but really his passion was movement and coaching, not just coaching clients, but coaching trainers and kind of trainer development, trainer education. So that's what he does.
Yeah.
And we have the scale now to allow him to do that. And as we continue to grow, there could be more growth opportunity there. I think we are exploring opportunities to invest more in the one-on-one client experience. Not that we're getting into the personal training model at all, but we might get more hands-on with onboarding.
Member onboarding.
Yeah, member onboarding, not trainer onboarding.
Yeah.
Member onboarding, with kind of member check-ins and whatnot. And we've got some other ideas along that path that could create opportunity for people that are like, hey, I love MAD. I don't just want to grow in operations. I like educating people and working one-on-one. I don't want to be accountable to a lead funnel or a sales funnel or a P&L or anything like that. Like, okay, cool. We have this path for you. Same thing on the operational side. Right now, we don't have, like if one of our GMs was like, I need more. What's next for me on the operational side? Like, sorry, maybe it would be golden handcuffs. But at 6 locations, maybe there's a director role or a...
It's about a district, regional kind of, yeah.
Yeah. And that could be managing multiple studios. It could be managing a single discipline across all studios. I would say kind of, A, we haven't gotten that far yet, and B, it would depend who we have in the pipeline. But yeah, we do want to provide as much growth opportunity as we can to the people that we want to keep on board. So calling that, I would say yes to the golden handcuffs.
And the reason the golden handcuffs had to come out with you is because there wasn't anything above it.
Correct.
Right? Like there's the only other thing we had to offer, if your ownership group. But once you have these multiple higher tiered roles, or as corporate HQ starts growing as well, and there's vertical trajectory people could take, less need to have to tie them to your thing.
Correct.
Everyone's replaceable, but at the time, while you were technically replaceable, they certainly didn't want to have to do it, and they don't think they would have gotten the same result.
Correct.
You can replace anyone, you're just going to replace them with someone shittier. It's going to take longer. The odds of it being someone better might be high or low, depending on what it is. And so I've had people like, so how do I get my owners to put golden handcuffs on me and give me a percentage of it, or do something to some degree, profit share, whatever it may be. It's like,
Make yourself indispensable.
yes. You gotta make it so like they fear every day you sending an email like, my husband got relocated to Indiana.
Yeah.
And they're shitting their pants. You gotta make it so like, I never want you to leave.
That's right.
And what would you boil down, you think is the thing for them that made that happen for you? You obviously went in there, you cracked heads at Elizabeth, you showed results, like, but it's gotta be, I think it's gotta be more than just that.
Even in that GM role, I was still kind of doing some work with Brandon on the branding side. Like I would write all of our blogs for the website. So I honestly think like a really good operator or someone who's good at running a playbook is more replaceable than what my skill set of communications and on like grasp of the brand is less replaceable.
Sure.
And I started putting my fingerprints on our brand messaging and our voice early in that GM role. And I think that is, I don't know if that's you'll have to ask them.
Yeah.
From my vantage point, where I see the most opportunity to make myself indispensable is through like grabbing our brand voice by the balls so that no one else can speak the language as good as I can.
Yeah.
As well as I can. In that position, I think I just worked my fucking ass off like I was an owner. And that compensation model helped drive that a lot. And we saw substantial revenue growth in a pretty compressed amount of time through some of those like higher level strategies of brand partnerships and Mad Perks.
Is that GM comp plan still in place?
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
To a different, we've had to tinker it a little bit since like it's now location specific and it looks a little different for a studio just opening because when you're not profitable, how do you incentivize?
Correct.
So we're doing that here more through memberships, like net new memberships is where the bonus lies. But yes, we have hung on to that model for our current GM, which yeah.
When did your interests, like, I don't know when I started following you on social, but did it just turn on for you? Like, I'm going to start making content one day? Because it was obviously on the nutrition side. Like, you did the blueprint.
Yep.
Remember when you guys came to the Self-Made Summit?
Yes.
And all those gym owners got a copy of that. And it was, I got so many compliments on it from people. But at what point did you just decide to do it? Because obviously, one of the reasons I absolutely love you is you're very much like very fuck off kind of attitude.
Yeah.
Which matches Mad, but like, was there ever a friction point with your voice as Finley representing Mad, and then was there ever like, okay, Finn, you bring it down or take it this way, or like, because I have a lot of owners. Mm-hmm. My head coach is great, and she's doing more social, which is great. But how do I steer her in a certain direction on her personal account? How do I steer someone there? Because she is kind of talking about fitness stuff and she reflects the brand. Like, was there a growing pain point there where you were going on your social and finding your voice on social and you're tied to the brand?
Man, it's just so aligned, the brand voice and my personal voice. And that's kind of what I mean by the like fingerprints. They literally gave me the freedom to like create it. And at no point has Brandon ever like, or Kirk, like tried to bleach
reroute
me.
you.
And a lot of it probably stems from my buy-in to the brand. Like, they never had to ask me to steer my personal content towards Mad. It was just like so very much aligned, and I was using a lot of the education I would spit on my personal social account to prop up what we recommend and how we educate at the brand level, that it was very much like working in tandem.
I think it's also, first, I think it's Brandon and Kirk's vision that she believes in, buys into, and wants to give voice to. So it's all kind of one and the same.
Yeah.
I also think as a brand, because Brandon and Kirk are focused on what works instead of what sells, there's no like protected information. It's like, no, we don't want to tell clients that because it's bad for our business. Like, no, we should be telling clients whatever it is that works. That's it.
Yeah.
Full stop. So I think the fact that our business and our education is so in line allows you to kind of say whatever the fuck you want.
Yeah, they're all philosophies that the three of us like very firmly believe in ourselves. And that helped a lot. And again, I really appreciate that no one ever tried to leash me. Now that we're at the point of growth where we are, sometimes on the corporate side of things, they're like,
text from Rick, like
reel it in a little bit. Not on my personal, but sometimes I'll run by Brandon. I'm like, can I post this?
Yeah.
Most of the time he's like, go for it. And then sometimes he's like, no. Or
Brandon and Kirk also just, social media wasn't something that, ever came naturally, they ever wanted to do or whatever.
Yeah.
So like having someone who had a skill set to do it and wanted to run with it. I mean, again, it's like you talk about like being indispensable. Like that's every gym owner wishes that they had a GM who also loved to make and could make good quality content that could help promote the brand of the gym.
Yeah.
And it's generally not the case in most scenarios.
Yeah.
When you are looking at candidates now to hire, do you look at a resume first or do you go to social? You scope out who they are there or there?
I'll still look at a resume first.
Okay.
Because it's in front of me. I mean, it's there with their
How much weight does it have
application
compared to the social, to the, their LinkedIn, to all that shit?
I would say the resume is a filter, but it's not I don't really
You can't interpret douchebag on a resume.
Yeah, I don't really care. I guess the question on a resume is like, do they know how to present themselves on a resume? More than actually like, what are their resume items?
Yeah.
It's like, do they actually know how to write a complete sentence without misspellings and just dog shit on their resume?
Yeah.
So it's almost like a professionalism check than it is a experience check, if that makes sense. So yeah, as long as they're kind of ballparked for experience, yeah, then it's a Instagram check. And if it's a bunch of, if it's a woman and they're got their hands all over their eyes, sorry, cut. Or it's a dude with the shirt off, like fucking flexing all the time, like we're out. If it's a person, like a normal person, that you're like, oh, that's somebody I'd want to hang out with.
Sure.
Like, cool. Let's get you into the gym.
So that's the check. Like just scanning their social. Is that someone I would want to hang out with? Because I think my members and me would want to hang out with the same kind of person.
Yeah. What I'm trying to glean is, are they in this, how self-absorbed are they?
Sure.
Really? Or how self-absorbed do they present? And if they present as being super fucking self-absorbed on social media, then we're probably out.
What if social media is not even, it's like barely, they have the account, but it's nothing. Okay. So is that something you guys, when you're looking for hires now, you're like, it's not required, but we do like to find someone who is somewhat social media savvy so they can add to our organic reach.
Definitely additive. It's one component of the hiring process. It's additive, but it's not the only thing.
Yeah.
I would say someone's social media presence is more likely to get them cut from a hiring list than to get them actually hired, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
And I say like the self-absorbed thing, it can still, like fitness professionals are still them working out.
Yeah.
A lot of times. That's great.
It can't be one-dimensional. Yeah. You gotta have multi-dimensional. Show me that you've got friends or a family. Show me you like fitness. Yeah. And that you drink a beer or something on the weekends.
Yeah. Yeah. And even if it is all fitness, just don't make it all pictures of you with your shirt off, flexing into the camera. Like that's not what we want. But if it's you doing back squats or talking in the camera, trying to educate.
Yep.
Cool. Awesome. Great.
Were you on board with Z-Growth when they first brought it up? Was Z-Growth coming in 2019? I mean, I'm assuming they brought it and said, hey, there's this group, there's this little gentleman named Rick, and they want to buy in and blah, blah, blah. In 2019, like, was there a conversation there? Because that could be a big wind of change for this little triplet that you guys had going on.
Yeah, they shared enough that there was some kind of transaction happening. Yeah.
Like, don't worry, it's going to be good. You're not going anywhere.
Yeah, there was no,
Okay.
They're not, they made it very clear that they weren't going anywhere. I was the GM at that point. Oh, and we were in the conversations of
ownership,
of buying in with them. And that actually prompted, I think that was one of the reasons they, were inviting of this partnership, because they knew that this partnership with Z-Growth was going to offer a different level of scale and speed behind that scale, that they kind of foresaw even more limited availability in the local Charlotte market.
Do you think for Brandon and Kirk, it's best for them not to actually own any units now at this scale, at over 100 signed units?
Yeah.
I mean, like, I just imagine, I've been enough to the franchise conferences, but like that could be a talking point, a gossip point at some point. Like, oh, it's because it works in Charlotte that's getting installed. It still is.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
People and part of it is from a scale perspective, it's still relatively young brand, right? Like we're talking about 2019 and then COVID hits. So realistically, you're talking about kind of 21 and later, 2021 and later that you've really had the growth hit. And so, when people are looking around asking what works, you've got like 8 markets to look at that have actually been around long enough to tell a story. With DC and Charlotte being the 2 biggest, were the 2 examples that people point to constantly. It's like, well, of course everybody wants to talk about fucking Charlotte or talk about fucking DC. Like, we're not DC, we're not Charlotte. It's like, well,
you're not. Yeah, but that's also that's the thing though. It's I feel like I've had enough conversations with other franchisees in your system where they accept the fact they're getting in early, right? Like if they wanted to, like again, I'm just gonna make up a city. We don't have one in Cleveland, Ohio yet, do we? All right, Cleveland, Ohio comes. They want to get in now. They want to join MADabolic. It's like, I want to get into a franchise system. Cool. Why don't you do F45? Why don't you look at a Life? Why don't you look at one of those? there's also like the kind of franchisee you guys attract is not like a conglomerate of like, we own 16 froyos and 15 massage bars. Like you guys are dealing with single unit owner operator type scenarios. Yes. It is far more small business than what Orange Theory was at its growth, where you had doctor groups each throwing in $250,000 and buying up everything in Pennsylvania. Correct. Like the rights to that. So my conversation with a lot of franchisees is like, yeah, you guys are all kind of still flying the plane as you build it, like as a franchise system, right? But what coming to that is the access. Because if they had it all figured out and you were going to be franchise number 250, guess what? You probably couldn't afford it. Or you might not even be attractive because you're a single unit buyer. Correct. You'd have to be a multi-unit buyer to even step to the fucking table. So yeah, you have to accept some of the changes and the, the pivot points and the growing pains of a young franchise system. What do you think makes a great MADabolic franchisee in this, again, this like adolescent, growing, evolving kind of model that has seen change? It's obviously everything's going up and to the right. It's looking good. What makes her a great MADabolic franchisee?
Our best franchise. So Landon
are you filtering? I'm real time. Yes. Are you like filtering what Finley wants to say versus like Finley, the corporate representative right now?
Yeah. Okay. One area that Brandon has to really back off in is like, fix your face. Your eyeballs are moving around way too much right now, and we've got company. Figured, put your screen, take off the camera, turn the camera off. No, I'm just kidding. So the best. Landon just talked about how he appreciates the structure in the playbook, but there's some rope to, which is true. But the most successful franchisees we have stepping up to the plate as new to the MADabolic system are the ones who actually like follow the playbook and put the systems in place the way they're designed to be put in place. It's a lot, and that's. You saying that out loud, it's like, well, of course, why would you get into franchising if you're not, like, that's the appeal to a franchise. But there's still plenty of instances in which an owner comes in and they still want to draw on their previous experience outside of MADabolic that might be in conflict with our philosophies or our systems. And it's definitely the ones who are willing to work their asses off. Like it's not, they're not just coming in thinking that the business is going to run itself if they find a killer GM. And they're willing to follow the playbook that is in place. Those are our most successful franchisees outside of our legacy pool.
Yeah. And when I say creative license, I mean more so in like managing staff and filling out the org chart. Because again, we're one of two multi-unit markets right now. And so there's not a required org chart that we have to follow. It's hard. It's complex. It's fun. I love it. I love figuring out the org chart. For me, the like brand alignment and vision alignment, like it's just never even, I just don't even, I'm so bought into the program and the way that we talk and what we don't do that it's just never even up. Like when you say that stuff, I'm like, oh yeah, I guess I do have to check myself because that doesn't even occur to me, wanting to step outside of our core program or the way that we talk or the way that we onboard people or anything like that.
Do you think it's a conflict of being a franchisee and an entrepreneur, and like the entrepreneur, maybe the true entrepreneur, the organic, whatever you want to call it, wants to kick in all the walls and figure out his own path through the maze, versus with a franchisee, it's like you got to like, why would you become a franchisee if you didn't want to follow and execute on a play?
It depends on the franchisee. It depends on the entrepreneur.
You sure?
Entrepreneur, business owner.
Are franchisees entrepreneurs?
No. I think if you have somebody come in that they're a visionary type franchisee, that's not going to be successful. If you are an operational entrepreneur, that can work. I consider myself an entrepreneur. Like
you're entrepreneurial.
I like the brand sphere. I don't need a brand vision. I don't need to create some product that I am super passionate about bringing to market. I like to solve the operational problems internally. That is entrepreneurial. That's what I like to figure out. All the other shit, systems, the admin, again, the brand vision, the brand voice, even just like the guiding social media content, like the Finley, like I don't want to fucking touch that stuff. Yeah. I like the operations side. I like the customer experience side.
Yeah.
So yeah, I wouldn't say that a franchisee is an entrepreneur. I think an entrepreneur is kind of by definition creating something that hasn't been yet or before.
Yeah.
Whereas this is kind of bringing life to something that already exists. So it's entrepreneurial.
Yeah.
But I wouldn't say that it's like I wouldn't call myself an entrepreneur. I think that would be like.
What about you? Are franchisees entrepreneurs?
I would agree with Lan, but I think that there are some entrepreneurial franchisees.
Mm-hmm.
I would echo everything you just said.
I know this is a point of conversation. I gather it's a point of conversation because some people take it very personally.
Oh, very. Holy shit.
Gives a fuck?
Oh, yeah.
Who fucking cares whether somebody wants to call you an entrepreneur?
Yeah.
Like, get over yourself.
Probably can't, like, the person complaining can't spell it, okay? Yeah. Like, without spell check being on. Like,
yeah.
So, you guys will notice my daughter. So, it was just last week. She's got a little coloring book, bunny, and it's a maze, and the bunny's got to get to the carrot.
Yeah.
And we were sitting there, and she's fucking off doing her thing, and I've got my laptop, and we're just like, oh, good job, baby, blah, blah. And she's like, Daddy, what are you doing? And I was like, Daddy's working. And we started talking about it, and literally, I ended up using the maze. And I was like, okay, so show me how you're going to get through the maze. And she's kind of like stuck. And I'm like, and we were talking about this in a similar concept. A franchisee would be someone, a good franchisee is going to fucking just, wrong way, back out, but he's going to stay within the lines. Mm-hmm. By the time she was done, there was a carrot, but then she had also drawn a basketball. She's really into basketball right now. She just drew a basketball and then like went through the fucking walls to get to the basketball. And like to her, she's like, well, yeah, I don't want a carrot. I want that.
Yeah.
So she went through the walls. It's like, you would be more like what we'd call an entrepreneur. You saw the walls and you're like, yeah, fuck that. I'm going this way.
Yep.
Yeah. A really good operator would fucking follow the maze. Yes. And you both get what you want at the end of the day. It's not one's better than the other, but you're right. That is a triggering fucking word for people, especially in the franchise thing. And honestly though, when I've asked more franchisees than not, most of them have said, I wouldn't say I'm an entrepreneur. I'm entrepreneurial or I have skill sets like that, but I sure as fuck would never or could have never thought of this thing.
No.
It's crazy. I mean, it's so, everyone's an entrepreneur in your Instagram bio, right? Like it's kind of right? Yeah.
Visionary, entrepreneur, father.
I got a Shopify store and I drop ship t-shirts and like, which listen, it's all good. And there's no judgment either way. These labels though, people get very fucking
it's just an identity thing. Yeah. It's just like, who cares? Just be honest with yourself. Whatever anybody else wants to call you, fuck them. Let them call you an entrepreneur or not an entrepreneur. It doesn't matter.
Has Matt ever had business cards like at the front desk?
Uh-huh.
Mm-hmm. You guys still do? Mm-hmm. People take them?
Not really.
No, not next to the sweet, not next to the
not next to the candy.
Yeah, the candy.
Yeah, the candy takes over.
When I was in Rhino, Rhino had that all set up. I was like, oh shit. Like Finley's got, is this like a corporate thing now? We're all like rolling it out. It's all just like
everyone else is copying us.
Unofficially just following your lead.
Often imitated, never duplicated.
Yes. Was it Hooters always had those shirts on? Often imitated, never duplicated. I love that. Where did the candy thing? So walk everyone through this. So you're at the front desk right now at the Rhino, Colorado location, or here is it at every location here? Charlotte?
Every location in Charlotte. Now a lot of other franchise locations do it.
There is candy on the front desk.
Yeah.
Walk us through that.
So that started last January as like a go fuck yourself January challenges, like no sugar, no alcohol, whatever. Yeah. But if we're going to do something like that, there's going to be education behind it as to like, why is there candy here? What's the purpose? And so it morphed into this education around the value of glucose specifically in a pre and post workout window. And it also serves as this like very distinctly anti-diet culture. It supports that stance, which we're like super loud and proud about. And then it just became this talk trigger. Like people were taking pictures of it, posting it to their social media. Everyone was fucking loving it. So then I replicated the sign I made that stands behind it, that gives the science for the people who give a fuck about actually reading it. And gave it to the franchisees, and now a lot of them have their own candy stores in place too. It started as just a January thing. We took it down at the end of January, and by like March, people were like, where the fuck are the Swedish fish? Like they were so upset about their pre-workout candy being taken from them. So now it is just a permanent installation.
It's a new line item on our operating expenses.
I bet 2/3 of clients grab candy before they work out.
And it's refreshing. Awesome. Like that's and think about a new lead coming in for the first time who's like coming from this culture of like a 30-day challenges or eat this, not that lists, and this fitness facility that like, you know, promotes wellness for life, has candy sitting on it. It's like, you know, a barrier to entry into our education around longevity and sustainable fitness and nutrition approaches that have nothing to do with restriction.
And I love it. A lot of people, why do you think MADabolic hasn't been directly copied yet? Like you can find a lot of things that look like Orange Theory. You can't like directly copied. Like again, it's real hard. You go put candy on your front desk and deal, because you've never done that before, and you've probably pitched diet culture or keto this or whatever, and now you're doing this. You lock people out from when they don't show up on time. It's when you really stay true to the grit of that brand, it's hard for them, but then they also, on the back end, they've hedged their bets. No one's gonna be tough enough to do this.
Yeah. I had another gym owner in Charlotte that wanted to grab coffee to talk about our locked door policy.
Yeah.
So we did. We sat down and we talked about it. Like, so like, what if somebody's like 2 minutes late? Like, I was like, no, don't let them in. And he talked about it. He's like, this would be so good for us. It's so disruptive when people come in. Like, I think it's been a year.
Yeah.
Haven't done it.
Yep.
Right? It's hard. I think, again, Finley, Brandon, Kirk, the whole corporate team, their commitment to doing what works over what's easy or what's going to sell. Like the more you start to capitulate on some of those, even candy, like let's say candy, let's do banana chips instead.
Let's do dates instead.
Yeah.
Like
dried fruit.
All of a sudden you start to water down and you're like fucking everybody else. And it does become easy. You can make decisions that benefit you in the short term because they're what's popular now, but then the fad comes and goes, or because it's easy, other people can do it. And all of a sudden you're a commoditized product and you're like everybody else. So
I think our churn rates are so low because the workout is incredible, but also I think because people trust us. Yeah. And I think MADabolic is hard to copy because things like the locked door policy and the candy, like that comes down to our like culture and ethos at like the mitochondrial level. You know what I mean? Yeah. And that's really hard to just copy and paste if you don't have the bearings to actually like stand behind it.
You can't have a candy bar and a 6-week challenge that generates cash.
Totally.
Yes. I've said this before to people who really paid to get on a call and me, be like, hey, listen, you see MADabolic, I want to do something similar, but I'm like, don't be asking what they're doing. Focus on what they're not doing.
Yeah.
That is the difference maker. Everyone's focused on, they have a lane, like, no. It's set up a certain way, but what are they not doing? They are not adding new equipment based on requests from members and the trend of the fucking, they are still zero barbell. Mm-hmm. Do you know at the peak of CrossFit, how many fucking people probably brought up at some point, why don't we have barbells or pull-up bars in here? Mm-hmm. And you know, after hearing that over and over and over and seeing the rise of these CrossFit gyms, how difficult it is to not do that. It's not about what they do. It's about how they do what they don't do. Really is the biggest thing. And I still attribute that to why I don't think we don't see, a lot of money got kicked behind a concept like this. It looks eerily similar, different shade, right? Kind of scenario.
We see it in Charlotte all the time too. Like different single point mom and pops popping up trying.
This model, 100%, the lane model and the whole thing, 1,000%. Yes, yeah. Which is okay though, because Brandon Kirk also ripped this off of fucking Fight Gone Bad, right? That part is incestually. Yeah, who cares?
Totally.
Because this isn't magical. Because you're right, there are gyms that have this exact same setup.
We patent interval training.
Suck ass. Yeah. They fucking suck ass because it's not this. That's not what makes this thing special. It's all the little, committing to game day. And besides changing the frequency and things like that, you guys have kept it, it's refusing to change for the sake of loud minority or trends and things like that. And inconsistency is always what I come back to. It's they are just consistently the same all the time. And you said it's nice. I think people trust us. Mm-hmm. It is also nice to have I don't know, think of anything you've paid for forever. And just the service consistently changes. They add something or decrease something or this, or it can weigh on you as a consumer. You're like, fuck it. I just want to go in there knowing exactly what I'm going to get every fucking time I go in there. I want to know that when I say, hey, I'm that, and I wear the shirt, that's not changing, right? Whereas like at the CrossFit gym, it's like they could pivot, go from north to south in 1 month because the coach went to some new educational summit and he has this new belief in programming and philosophy and all this and blah, blah, blah. And we're changing this whole fucking thing. The idea when that gym comes to you is like, I want to do locked door power. I'm like, that's no. Just stay consistently to who you are. Just do it a better job. Quit trying to be me. Yeah. Do you think because I lock people out, that's why we sell memberships? Right. No, it's not. It just allows us, it just from A to Z, that's who we've been. Yeah. Right? You know, nobody minds their buddy who gets a little out of control when he's drunk. As long as he's just always that guy. Yeah. It's like, I can rely on him. I can rely on him to do that. Like, he's that guy. Let's talk marriage. And this partners, life partners, and biz partners. Co-parents. Yep. What did that look like with the conversation of you leaving that startup and then coming into here? Was there ever Mama's built this house, right? And now you're going to come on in and do it. Like, how did that conversation happen?
I was very sensitive to it. I, again, was at a point in my career where I felt like I was ready to go kind of test my mettle and go out on my own and do something, whether that meant kind of staying in the tech and startup world, getting into an earlier stage company and kind of helping. Again, I'm not a visionary. I probably wasn't going to start a company, but kind of getting in at the ground level, or doing something like this. And I was very sensitive to coming into her place of work where I say her place of work, that undersells it. It is, Mad Charlotte is like, Finley is the icon. Like she is, it's true. Like, you are the face and have been the face of Mad Charlotte for, 7 years now, 8 years. And
Landon has my Get Up figure tattooed on his wrist.
It's true.
Yeah.
How about that?
There we go. Was that this past year's party?
The year before.
It's the year before. Yeah. Okay. But there was not a moment's hesitation. There wasn't like, okay, you can do this, but we need to set some ground rules. It was like, this would be awesome. We've always wanted to do this together. Like, it was.
Yeah.
She was 100% on board. She was the one that was actually pushing me. Once we opened that door, kind of opened that conversation, she was the one that was really pushing for it.
Yeah. Yeah. I think something that works, two things work in our favor currently in our current setup. Who knows where Mad goes? Like I can see a scenario in the future where, I come back and put more of my energy back into Charlotte and we work together on a more regular basis day to day. But I still spend most of my time with Brandon and Kirk. I'm working more on the franchise than on Charlotte, and Lanny is the primary operator here.
We're not
in each other's shit all day long.
Yeah.
So there is some degree of separation still. Even though our eggs are really in the same proverbial basket, but we're not in each other's shit all day. And the second thing that I think works in our favor is our skill sets are very different and very complementary. So I'm the shoot from the hip creative. He's the systems.
Art, math.
Yes.
Yeah.
Art and math. Left brain, right brain.
Yep.
So we complement each other well there. I'm not trying to pretend like I am better at what he does than he is, and vice versa. So we that is helpful that our skill sets are complementary and very different.
Yeah, and it actually helps me, especially because A, because of the way Finley thinks, B, because she was in the GM role for so long and was so successful at it. I struggle to think like
a GM,
not just like a GM, but a non-systems, non-process person.
Like,
that blows my fucking mind. And it is interesting to think about. I think if she, not married, but if she were a GM and I or someone like me was the owner and she stepped into a highly processed and highly systematized role, A, I don't think she would have liked it as much. I don't think, maybe. But B, I don't know that you would have done as well as you did, because so much of what you did was kind of unscripted and your own kind of creative expression, not just with social media, but even with developing a partnership program and whatnot, which is interesting for me to reflect back on as an owner and manager of our people, to be like, all right, what is the right balance of systems and process the way I think, but also allowing for the kind of creative freedom and flexibility that allowed her to be successful too. So yeah, I think the way that we both our current roles, that they're different, her past experience gives me a different perspective, and the fact that our skill sets are so different, yeah, it all just complements really well.
Yeah, I mean, the timing was great for you to be more creative and art-based and shoot from the hip and be creative and spontaneous and just throw the spaghetti against the wall. I'm like, all right, well, that works for now.
Right.
But now you've seen so much spaghetti thrown against the wall. You guys, again, that's what the franchise, you guys have seen, like, now throw it like that and throw it right there. It'll be a lot easier. Sure, you, Mr. Franchisee, new guy who wants to be creative like Finley was back in the day, you can throw it all over the wall if you want, and you're going to waste 9 months of work and blah, blah, blah. Just throw it like this.
Yes, totally.
But some people that still, they're like, man, it's getting a little bit, maybe a little too corporate. Like, have you like, and maybe even felt that even as you're the anti-corporate person, and now you are corporate.
Yeah.
How does that kind of back and forth of like, okay, is it, because for new ideas, you still have to shoot from the hip, but then you got to kind of run them through a brain think like his of like, okay, now how do I make this so I can roll it out? Yeah, roll it out for everybody.
So that they can just do it all.
Yeah.
I mean, I feel like Lanny, you are more in the weeds with the GMs on like throwing shit at the wall and seeing what sticks.
Social media, you've built, your social media is still very, her social media, like you don't have a 12-month calendar built necessarily, right? Like you don't know what you're going to post in 3 weeks.
No.
But when she does things that hit, you have now built the skill set to be able to set guidelines and parameters and assets that other people are able to leverage.
Yeah, that's basically what you just said. Like, we spent 9 months throwing shit at the wall. A lot of failures, by the way. A lot of things we tried that just bombed and didn't work. But like, fuck it, whatever. We try something new and whatever. Like, so we just took the most successful strategies that worked and processed them in a way that makes them copy and pasteable. Because, go ahead.
It's almost like you're thinking about your role now. It's almost like you are still kind of the creative freewheeling on a forward-looking sense. But then the trail behind you is more systematized and processed.
Yes. Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Like you're still kind of shoot from the hip. That's probably a little bit unfair, but more in that vein on like the new work that you take on and kind of the ongoing forward-looking strategy. But the trail you leave behind for other franchisees to follow is pretty well systematized and documented.
Yeah. Also worth noting though that the work I do now is a lot less around events and partnerships, and it's a lot more around like content development and
the media
branding
side,
and all of that. So I'm more like, I feel like I'm more of this like consultant like resource for people. Like, well, when you did this, how did it work? As opposed to like Beth is a lot more in the weeds with actual execution of these strategies at work. And we're stockpiling things that other franchisees do and test that we never tried in Charlotte that work really well, and we're, copying them here. It's like we have the GetUp is our internal like learning management software, but there is a place for owners to share. We also have monthly meetings with locations segmented by market size. So there's a major metro first year call. And so we're constantly crowdsourcing great ideas from all locations, and even segmenting where they are in their ownership life cycle. And I mean, I'd say we replicate things that other locations are doing outside of Charlotte that seem to work well.
What tactically, like true tactics on the marriage front, like is it when we come home, we don't talk about Mad? Or is it like we just find ourselves constantly talking about this? Like, do you have any like actual, like, have you had to come up with any hard and fast rules for you guys as a personal partnership?
We've tried. We've tried the whole like, let's not talk about Mad past 8 p.m.
Yeah.
That hasn't stuck.
It depends.
There are definitely times. So what's hard is we actually don't see each other that much in the workday because I spend all of my time in South End with the exception of 1 day a week. And he's all over the place. So we're not spending a whole lot of our workday together. So really the only times that we have the opportunity to come together on Charlotte stuff is at night.
Sure.
But there are times where one of us will go off and then the other will be like, can we not, let's just not right now. Let's just.
I think the most important thing is not necessarily like setting rules around MAD, but making sure we have outlets for us as a couple outside of MAD.
Yeah.
So part of that is kids. Obviously we have 2 kids. Part of that is just like going out on a fucking date night once a week. Or going to see friends, just the 2 of us once a week. And it's those times that we don't talk about MAD. Like those, that is the hard and fast, like don't talk. But having those kind of outlets where we are just a couple allows the nights where we're not out and we are at home to have better balance too. Does that make sense?
Yeah. What role in the Charlotte MAD portfolio, everything from your lowest role to the highest role that you have now, are you least suited for? Like out of all the things in the org chart, trainer development, front, whatever the fuck, like which one would you be the least suited for that your skill set doesn't apply to it and you don't want to do it?
2 different answers between least qualified for and don't want to. I fucking hate like the low-level admin, repeatable, sales and use tax, paying invoices, payroll, anything that is super repeatable.
Less line, more mouse clicks.
Oh, fucking kill me. Like blow my brain. Insurance.
Sure.
Oh, hate it. Can do it. Hate it. Qualified would probably be like onboarding trainers.
Okay.
I know enough to be dangerous to run a really good class. I love people. I'm good with clients. I can't coach as technically well as a lot of our other trainers. I just coach once a week just to stay close to it. I don't want to coach any more than that, and I don't want to come off the schedule entirely because I think it just kind of keeps me close to the front. I mean, like the front line's not being the star of the show. But yeah, onboarding trainers, like I'm not.
And we've had this conversation of like almost like, fuck, do I need to have that same level of education as a Dakota? And stuff like that.
And I give you credit. You kept me honest. You and I met probably 6 weeks ago to just like catch up, shoot the shit on kind of things that were going on with our business. And one of the things you asked me was like, what do you struggle with most, just as a person, as a leader, whatever. And my answer has been and continues to be trying to do everything all at once. And an example I used at the time to give myself some credit was, hey, I bought this Joel Jameson 8 weeks out course kind of on a whim, but to my credit, I'm learning. I'm not taking it right now. I'm pushing that off to Q2 so I can continue to stay focused on Q1 and not let my priorities drop. Yeah. And you were like, pushing it out to Q2, huh? I was like, yep. And you're like, is nobody else on your team educated on like the movement side? I was like, no, we got some super educated people. Yeah. I was like, where do you stack on that? I'm like, probably towards the bottom in terms of technical knowledge. Like, why the fuck are you taking that course at all? I was like, I don't know. I own a gym. I feel like I should know.
Kind of in the programming work on weaknesses versus prioritize strengths.
Yeah. And you were like, you think that time is better spent than going and getting, if you're working on personal development or professional development, leadership training, management training, or just fucking strategizing on the business? And I was like, fuck.
It's tough though.
You're right.
When is the right time to work on weaknesses? And there's times where it's like, personally, I need to stop being such a dickhead, or I want to learn more about whatever, versus focusing on the strengths. Yeah. It's like, I don't know. I was focused on the weakness generally like when you were younger in the career to get hired. That's when you should do it. If you've made it to the point where you're at now, you probably didn't need any Joel Jameson's 8 weeks out information. Yeah. You probably don't need it going forward.
That's right.
So it's like you're already past that point. I don't have it, but it's like you'll see like, you listen to a podcast like How I Built This with Guy Raz, and the founder is a fucking moron. And they're like, how in the fuck did you get here? He's like, I did like these 2 things. Like those 2 things made me.
Yeah.
So I'm not going to worry about any of that shit below me. I like somehow skipped the line and I got up here. Why okay, now I need to go back and audit myself and fuck that.
Yeah, that's it. And I think, and again, I give you credit for that sticks with me, for keeping me honest on that and like for me, it's focusing on the things that matter. So talk about like the things that I don't like, not good at, don't want to do. The things that I need to be doing in place of things like getting a fucking fitness cert.
Yeah.
Stupid when I say it out loud. As even just the difference between 2 studios and 3 studios, 2 studios is small enough. It's big enough you can't do everything yourself, but it's small enough you can be adjacent to everything that happens. Like you can be as in the weeds as you want to be. And I would say particularly for the first 6 months where, you know, we were coming from a place of not a lot of systems and processes and best practices and documentation. I was in the weeds because I felt like I had to be. And in retrospect, I'm glad I was. I think it did us a lot of good to build off of going forward. But now at 3, I can't be even adjacent to those things. No. Like I just can't be. And so really my role now is CEO, CFO, COO, and head of HR. And that's a lot of titles for one person, but the reality is we're still a small business. But what that's not is sales manager. Mm-hmm. It's not marketing specialist. It's not trainer, right? Like I coach 1 class a week, that's it. And if my time is not spent focused on making decisions on or supporting big money makers, and I don't mean big money makers as in we've got a lead coming in at 5:30 a.m. I need to be there for that lead. That's not what I'm talking about. It's new business lines, new initiatives,
macro level revenue.
Yeah. And then it's HR. I have to
next man up.
Everything
ready to go.
Everything is HR, right?
Yeah.
Everything that I do is people.
Yeah.
Because I can't be like I will only ever be as from a skill set perspective. You have two choices. If you want to be as effective as you can at everything that you touch, you'll always be limited by the amount of work that you can handle. Whereas from an HR standpoint, if you become an excellent leader, manager, coach, whatever that is, you can be as effective as the amount of work everyone can do.
Yeah.
And so that's really where I have focused now at 3.
You're like the head of a multi-level marketing scheme. Yeah. Your revenue is based on is based on all the aggregate total of everyone else's ability. But that's it.
Totally.
That's what the head of HR is designed to do.
Yeah, totally. So it's been a mindset shift for me. I mean, I'm still learning.
Sure.
But it is the most important thing that I do now is elevating the people in the business and providing kind of the systems and operational support for those people to be successful.
What would you, at the studio level, not be as qualified to do, or would it want to do?
That.
The people aspect, HR percent?
It's not a skill set of mine.
Yeah. You guys, now, is there a different core? Because one thing that's difficult, it's like with a business, you guys have agreed upon core values from a business stance. MADabolic has core values, blah, blah. As people, even partners who have chosen to marry, you can still have different core values of what's important and what's not, or how things should be done or whatever. Is that coming from that? Like who I am, Finley, intrinsically just wouldn't lend itself well to leading an entire group in which I think the 30 of you are fuckheads and just shouldn't be here. Like what is it that on that side that where what makes him be able to do it, but not you?
I just see the way he does it, and I don't even know where to start. It's funny. I thought I never really I love all of our trainers. Like I loved our staff, but the managing people was always hard for me as the GM, like managing the trainers. But I thought I was decent at it. And then I zoomed out, and Lanny came in and actually started like doing it, and I was like, oh. Fuck, I am sorely underqualified for that. And I was not as efficient at it. And I think the trainers respected me, but it's been really impressive to watch him put everything in place and elevate the managers and the staff beneath the way he has from the top.
Were you a manager that was able to leverage a little bit of fear from staff?
No.
See, I get the feel like I'd be afraid maybe of Finley being my manager.
There's maybe a little bit of an intimidation factor when someone first meet me. Like one of our GM here told me a few times when she started as a trainer, she was like, "You make me so nervous." And I'm really, what's funny is I do have that like, fuck you, fuck off, I don't care what you fucking think personality. But as a manager, I struggle with the radical candor and having the hard conversations. I'm just not good at it. It either comes off too soft or too harsh. He has like he's very talented at leading difficult conversations without making it feel difficult at all.
Yeah.
But I don't know. We could talk for hours, I think, about all the different things he's put in place for the GM role and for the trainers. And I just, I don't have the skill set and I don't want it. Well, maybe I want, I don't know. That's just, I'd say that's what I'm least qualified for and probably enjoyed the least.
It's a solid Batman Robin kind of pairing as far as it goes. The worst thing is redundancy in ownership, like where skill sets are redundant. That is generally a disastrous dissolvement of partnership in the future, typically.
Yeah, I think for us, part of the we're not just saying this, and I know how this might sound to some other married people. We don't have conflict in our marriage. It's not that we don't have our conversations. We do. We just I don't know, when we disagree very constructively. Although I wouldn't say we share such similar values that I wouldn't say we really disagree all that much. It's like having a kid. If you have a marriage that is ridden with conflict and then you have a kid, the conflict is amplified tenfold or 100-fold.
You mean babies don't fix conflicts in a
Crazy.
marriage? Weird.
Crazy. Yeah. And I think it'd be the same thing for us with a business, where if we had conflict or points of disagreement or even like egos that didn't mesh, owning a business together would amplify that. But we've just always been able to like communicate really effectively. In a marriage sense, and now that's translated, I mean, we are business partners too, right? Like in a very cut and dry, we are business partners. And it's carried forward the same way.
Where is the Charlotte portfolio now? I remember you shared what the valuation of it was currently, but like right now, out of the 3 locations, are you able to break down just South End, Elizabeth here as far as like gross total monthly? Yeah,
so we... 12 months in to 2 studios, we had grown those 2 existing studios by about 25% members and revenue. So we were really pleased with that 12-month growth.
What does South End look like?
South End, so there was a little bit of internal attrition, right? We had probably 50 members from Elizabeth and 20 members from South End that moved their membership over to NODA.
End of the day, it's all going in the same bank account.
And it's all in the same bank account. So it doesn't matter for us. But, we do want, for the sake of the
GM's
there,
comp structure,
we want to get those back. So South End now is about 340.
Okay.
Elizabeth is just shy of 250. And NODA is now 175.
We're talking active memberships.
Auto pays, recurring auto pay memberships. So we have, a couple hundred flex pack people that kind of come in, or single session people that come in. We do well on Class Pass. So, we have Class Passes that come in, but, pure recurring predictable revenue. We're around, call it 770, 780, something like that across all 3.
Okay.
Memberships.
And then when you guys are looking at like multi-unit owners, right? There's generally one of the babies dies. You end up killing one of those babies at some point. The more clubs you have, the higher the likelihood is you are going to kill off one of them. Just because you just have more to compare it to. Yeah. When you have 2, it's like one chases with big brother, little brother. You have 3, it's still like a middle, but like one of the the oldest one is always outperforming everybody. Yeah. But then also as you grow, you also have lease renewals that come up and new commercial real estate scenarios and availability or not availability, and you grow more. is there like a minimum this market, like in your head, you're like, hey, let's grow this thing to fucking 5 or 6, and then, but I want to then consolidate to the best 3. Like, if you guys, like, how have you thought about like, we just want to have as many in here as we possibly can have? Or is like, honestly, I think like, I think 5 is, or 3 is the best, but we need to open up to some other markets and test this other thing out for us to know who the best
We're pretty realistic about where our product works and where it doesn't work. We will not work in a rural community. We will not work in a conservative community, to be completely honest, like a Christian conservative. Like, that's just not where we play. We high income, generally more urban lifestyle, even if that's not within the urban core, right? We talked about South Park being
former
kind of
urban lifestyle. Like, they lived and played here.
Yeah,
and now they own a house in South Park.
But even South Park, like, there is an urban center of South Park. It's not like they're going off to one strip mall for one thing and another strip mall for another thing. Like, it is a super robust,
self-sustaining,
bustling urban core. And then like Ballantyne is the other example in Charlotte, where it's even, 25 minutes outside of downtown, but like, it is an urban hub. You've got, an office park that probably has 10, 15 buildings that are 10 stories and up. It's got really core consolidated shopping, retail, robust restaurant scene, bar scene, all that kind of stuff, but still more suburban. We think from the quote unquote suburb standpoint, those are the only 2 areas that we really are interested in right now, because they have that semi-urban center. So yeah, that's kind of as far as we'll go on the suburban side until we're proven wrong. We've got 3 within the urban core of Charlotte: South End, Elizabeth, and Noda, each of which is kind of 10 to 15 minutes from the other. Noda is growing, we're in month 4 and we're profitable, which is great. We're super happy with that, and we'll have rent escalation, so we have to continue to grow to meet that. We think the urban core can probably support a 4th. So that, we think long-term, that's where we want to get to, is 6 within Charlotte. We have talked about expanding outside of Charlotte, but right now, especially given how Noda has performed, this new studio here, we feel like the highest and best use of our dollars to continue to invest where it's an active investment, not a passive investment, right? And so we will probably continue to deploy dollars in Charlotte until we feel like our return is capped. As far as kind of the ugly stepchild or the studio that we look to close, I mean, the goal would be that all 6 are great. If we got to a point where one is not profitable, we'd shut it down. But right now, all 3 are profitable, a couple more than others. But even if you bake in all of our spread all of our expenses, interest expense, owner salary, full-time staff salary that's maybe not studio specific across all 3, we're still profitable. So there's no real reason or incentive for us to shut one down, especially when we feel like we're not even, we haven't even fully hit our stride yet. We're only 18 months into this thing and still growing. So.
And it's like, that's something you generally, once you get at scale with multiple ones, there's always got to be a consolidation of one. And it's also just a staffing thing. Like, you get too many of them, you can't have an incredible staff all in one market across 7 locations. It just doesn't fucking happen. The suburban thing's interesting. How many MADs are in suburban-like markets? Not many.
No, not many. There are some.
Jupiter.
Yeah.
The Heights.
No, the Heights isn't
in Houston?
Cool part of Houston.
I thought that was more suburban.
ICT East, like a suburb of Wichita.
Okay. It's definitely the most under-tested submarket of all the. So like urban's your most tested submarket.
We definitely have we perform the highest in like very densely populated urban markets.
But McAllen, Texas,
but there are outliers
really well.
of suburban markets that do really well, and the common denominator there is the owner is very active. It's an active owner operator that like busts their ass and is like connected in the community.
And we say urban, like Asheville. Crushes.
Yeah, correct.
It's in the urban center of Asheville, just a smaller city, right?
And you've got Evan at over top, who he's remote, but he's not passive. He's super involved.
Yeah.
But in thinking about like the grid and the style here and all this, but like, is there like, if you go to South Park, are we having to just capture the elder MADabolic client that was the younger version in one of these locations, and now they live in South Park because that's what's affordable and realistic? Their kids go to school out there or something like that. And it's like, how does the MADabolic client grow to then be 40 with 2 kids, right? But still going to MAD, but in South Park MAD, or do they age out of MAD?
I think it can. I think you talked about, the pendulum swinging within fitness. I think the reality is the tide is just rising. And yes, open gym is doing better, but
so group's doing great too.
Group's doing great too. And I think you're starting to see the kind of average age of the general fitness person, attendee, probably rising too. I don't have data to back that up, but I know even in our South End and our Noda studios, which are in young, urban, hip neighborhoods, we are still having older people come try fitness for the first time, which we did not have 5 years ago when you were the GM.
That's interesting. So you guys seeing a higher age demographic walk in?
In addition to the younger.
Yeah, sure.
The younger hasn't gone away.
Yeah, your core customers are still coming in, but then there's also, you're like, how the fuck did he find out?
And they're like,
us?
I read about this, how strength training helps longevity and age better. And there's just more literature and education out there.
For maybe the first time, you have people in their 40s or maybe even 50s who have, like a lot of them, who have a lifetime of strength training under their belts, aging and entering the generation of our parents, which was not quite as active or strong of a generation. So yes, short answer to that, I do think, yes, we probably tap into an older market there, and young families.
It'll be a test. But we think we can pass it.
I've looked a lot at the segmentation that you guys use in finding your locations and your core customers based on your Experior mosaics. And it's like, when I look at that, it's like, okay, so the MADabolic, I'm 28 to 35 in one of these urban boroughs. Mm-hmm. And I do well at my work because I'm a high performer, because I show up to class on time and blah, 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 blah. So I can't afford to live in Dilworth. So I never, my age, the MADabolic South End age increases because we attract people who make good enough money to not have to leave.
Yeah.
There's 2 kinds of people who leave the urban core. Sure. Generally, they're people moving to the burbs because that's where the affordability is. Mm-hmm. They leave because it's like, I would love to walk to Sycamore still in these breweries and all that, but I can't afford the housing here, or it's not yard appropriate, whatever it is. It's not the right type of housing, structures. And then there's those that, the nice thing about every urban core, there is generally a residential pocket, but they're expensive as fuck. Mm-hmm. It's not cheap to live there. Like the dirt in Wilmore for a 0.23 acre is fucking $600,000 for the dirt alone.
Yeah.
But someone can buy it and put a house on it and live there and still walk to your South End location. Yeah. So it's like interesting when we think about like going to South Park, or whenever I look at someone who's made success in urban core, it's like going out there, it's okay. Are we heat map following people when they leave and they're like, can't afford to live there. I'm not in an apartment anymore. I got a kid now. And we're like fucking heat map. We're like, most of them move out there. Yeah. Let's fucking open one out there. We probably grand opening. We fucking recapture fucking 50, 100 people right there that were former members. Or is it just looking at South Park? It's like all the financial attributes match, even though the lifestyle's way different.
Yeah.
Like I had to drive to South Park for the first time in a while. I've got to drive every day, go and pick up my kid down Providence, going to Myers Park, and I want to kill myself.
Awful.
Every day.
Yeah.
Every day I just think like, could a drunk bus driver hit me? Like, as long as she's not in the car, just take me out.
Yeah.
But it is a different speed.
Yeah.
It is a different, it's, walkability's not a thing really. No. You're not walking from Restoration Hardware down to fucking your favorite, it's a different lifestyle, different speed. And that changes the psyche of the customer.
It does.
That's like, yes, going urban core to even suburban that has an urban, it still scares me sometimes. I just like, it's a different person.
Yeah, no, it will be different. It is not going to be a rinse and repeat of the clients that we have here, 100%. We will pick up some ex-clients that have moved out there.
Yes.
But mostly it's still going to be net new. But like I said, in Noda, it's net new. Now, again, different client. One of the benefits of having a franchisor is they've looked at this shit already. Yeah. And so you talked about having seen our kind of psychographics analysis. they have kind of done some of the legwork for us in understanding who lives where, demographically, psychographically, and what might work. And, you know, we can go into both of those submarkets knowing there's a whole lot of red for us, and red being good. So yeah, that's definitely an advantage.
You still thinking that pace, every 24 months? Like how, are you looking for are you looking to hit a number here first and then start looking?
No, we feel good about this.
Yeah.
Honestly, it's as much operational and HR stability as it is financial.
Sure.
As long as we trust that we have the right people and the right systems in place within our existing portfolio, whatever that portfolio looks like at the time, that gives me at least the comfort to then go out and do something new, even if we're not profitable yet. If I feel like we're going in the right direction and trust that the boots on the ground team and the processes we have in place will get us there, we'll go start looking for the next one. So yeah, I would say we'll probably kick off the search for number 4 this summer, if not sooner, which would put us on track for probably an 18-month gap between 3 and 4. And then the idea would be the same. I think there is, for us, it's a question of sequencing, because sequencing for 4 is very easy. Going to South Park or Montford, we'll draw from South End where we have 340 members. Honestly, having some attrition there is not a bad thing. You talk about it on your podcast sometimes. Having full classes gives you room to drive the business. You can pull different revenue levers and so on. So creating a little bit of room there is not a bad thing for us. But then if you stretch down to Ballantyne, let's say for number 5, after just having opened South Park, are you getting attrition from a studio that's still kind of finding its legs?
Sure.
You might actually want to get a little bit more runway. But again, if NOTA continues to grow, we open South Park a year from now, let's say, could we then do a 4th within the urban core, on the west side of Charlotte, for example? Or maybe even a second in South End, depending on how that looks.
Did you guys finance this through the SBA, this location?
No,
self-financed?
Self-financed. Yeah, we took out like a small friends and family loan.
Got it. That's the other thing too, is when you're opening, it's just kind of like people who corporately own all their stores and they're not franchised. Like the problem with corporately owned growth is you're either constantly fundraising, or because you can't just keep going back to the SBA bank. The well runs dry.
You can't do it.
Yeah. So you're like, no, sorry, your DSCR ratio is just way too fucked. You owe us way too much money as it is. Even though things look good and you're making payments, we cannot extend you another one.
For us, honestly, it was a scenario in which we had friends and family that were willing and able to invest at a not quite the rate that the banks are charging, but still you look at the financials, and if you can lock in a 6.5%, 7% return, you feel pretty good about that. And that saved us the pain in the fucking ass of having to go through the bank and do all the paperwork and nonsense.
Would you do it again on number 4, or would you at that point have enough of your 7A paid down to then buy yourself some?
Not the 7A. And we'll leave that in place, even with this 6.2% rate. Like our IRR is still higher than that. Like it doesn't make sense to pay that down early.
No.
So we'll leave that debt on schedule. I would like to self-fund that, because if you just want to make as much money as you possibly can, you take debt. You continue to take debt and you take on some additional risk or whatever. That's not really what we're after. Like we don't live a super lavish lifestyle. So I don't want to go take on, let's say, millions of dollars of debt to grow as fast as we possibly can. I would like to self-fund as much as we can and just kind of hold a fixed salary from the business. If we have to take on a little bit of debt to open number 4, like I'm okay with that, but probably nothing I can't pay off in 3 years.
Sure.
Let's say.
Yeah. I was trying to think about how I wanted to frame this next part up. So Brandon and Kirk just kind of hanging out at South End, kind of their office. It's kind of like this unofficial just kicking it.
Jack shit.
I got to admit, my guess is that there's never any like, hey, Finn, now that they've sold it, they're like, we're back here. Someone could be caught on fire on the training floor. And like, that's your thing. Or do you ever get like when mom and dad come over to your house and your dad's walking around, he's like, Oh, you haven't really cleaned that up since the last time I was here. Like, do you get that shit?
Yes.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
Not much. They're great.
Yeah, yeah.
And we also love them. We have such a good relationship.
Yeah, yes, we do have a really good like friendship with them.
Correct. Yeah.
Kirk has some funny old habits that he hasn't broken yet.
Like what? Like what?
He every single morning of his entire, MAD CLT ownership tenure would start every morning going into MindBody and looking at every single roster. And
Maniac.
He might still do that. I don't know. There'd be like
there
months
wasn't a high
later.
enough utilization rate.
He texted Finley on Saturday about our attendance at one of our
Oh
studios.
yeah,
I was like,
yeah.
dude,
Game day.
get the fuck out of here.
He was like, pretty weak attendance in Elizabeth and South for game day.
Man.
Yeah.
That's so funny.
Yeah.
But hey, there have been some things that he's flagged for us that we didn't even
That's good.
notice.
It's welcome.
No, it's all in fun. It's
Yeah.
all in fun. They're fantastic. They support us whenever we need it. They're always willing to carve time out
And they're still
for us
friends.
to
We have the franchisee. Well, Finley doesn't. I have the franchisor relationship. You have the coworker relationship, but they're like very close personal friends of
Yes.
ours too. And so if we ever needed them to do anything,
Sure.
they would do it, just as friends.
Yeah.
Because they're great guys.
Yeah.
And so even when they do, like Finley said, they'll still text us about like a cleanliness issue, let's say, but they're fucking right.
Sure.
And I appreciate it.
Yeah.
And I'm glad they're flagging it. And I'm kind of embarrassed when they do.
Yeah.
So yeah, it is so constructive.
The South End location is interesting. It's bigger than you need, and you got that whole side section over there. Is South End your most at-risk location due to lease renewals, cost of South End, all that? Like, that's the one location I'm thinking, like, it either gets, he would have to sell the entire fucking corner, which would be a big deal, but it could happen. Or you guys get rent high enough, but it's like, fuck, at that location, it's probably your best location revenue-wise. So you could afford a bump in rent, but it's like, fuck, now it eats our margin. You know, it gets crushed.
So for again, those that don't know Charlotte, South End has been the #1 development market in the country, either overall or just for apartments for I think it's been in the top 5 for 7 out of the last 12 years. It's bananas. We have a little corner that we share with another building that is one of the probably last 3 or 4 undeveloped parcels, at least vertically undeveloped parcels in the entire submarket. We're fortunate that our landlord is very wealthy and does not need the money, because if I were him, I would have sold that shit 5 years ago. So part of it is his appetite. He might come to us in our next lease renewal and say, guys, this is it. I'm getting out. I'm going to take my paycheck and never see you again. Which I would not be mad at him for. And I would do it myself. But it's also an interesting dynamic because we share a space with corporate. That's very constructive for both parties, I think, for them to be able to bring potential franchisees onto our training floor, let them observe class, kind of see how we do things. Exactly right. And vice versa. It's nice to have access to them. It's just good. And we get along. It's a constructive relationship. But we have split spaces in an otherwise standalone building. Our interests and corporate interests are not the same. Our corporate interests are not the same. Corporate's space is overhead. Our space is our revenue driver. This will be the first time that Brandon and Kirk have not controlled both entities.
So they lease from you? I apologize.
They sublease from us.
Sublease you.
Yeah.
Did you cut them a deal? Did you fucking
give
them market rate?
Yeah, they got a deal. That was all part of the
deal.
thing.
All right.
But we'll have to negotiate separate leases, and they should do whatever they want to do and whatever's best for them. I'm not going to influence that process at all. But there could be a scenario in which their wants don't align with the landlord's wants. Landlord doesn't want to lease. That leaves us occupying three quarters of a building that's probably hard to lease that last 25%. I don't know if we'll just see. It's just an unknown until we get into it.
Call Evan and find out, how do you do that physical therapy thing you're doing in Asheville?
Yeah.
Have you seen the numbers that the physical therapy brings in?
Oh, it's great.
Really good.
So that would definitely, that would be awesome.
Yeah.
Man, that would be a dream. Or some kind of boutique yoga studio or
it's got its own entrance to the parking lot. Yeah.
Yeah.
You get could. Yeah, I was curious, like have an HQ over there. It's like also for HQ, it's like at some point do you feel the need? Do you have to go get your own fucking digs and get your own spot? Or is it, I mean, I think it makes a lot of sense to have it inside of one of the locations, but also makes it, Brandon's got a telephone booth that may take fucking phone calls in because it's like you're next to a fitness studio. It's fucking loud as hell.
I think the economics, and I don't want to speak for them, but I think if the economics were right, I think they'd love to stay.
Yeah.
I think the situation works really well for all of us. The question, again, knowing that space is overhead, knowing that they want to maintain flexibility is like, what's just the best economic package? And that may or may not be there. We'll have to see.
Sure.
For us, I'd love to stay there. I mean, if economics allow, it's the original location. It does great. There's some logic to, even though it could use some lipstick, some of the, the light fixtures are dated. The paint isn't really up to our current brand standard.
No one's ever canceled because of it.
You know what? Yeah.
No one's ever submitted a cancellation because of it.
There's some, don't leave a good party, right? Party's good.
Yep.
Don't fucking leave it. Don't rock the boat. And
that's why it gets scary though too. It's like, fuck, when you spend so much time in a certain place, and they capitalize in that location early on, and it's a great spot, great lease. But yeah, it's always been my thing. It's like, because then it's like, well, fuck, South End. You're talking. We have to move blocks away if you want to retain that core. Like you couldn't
lose parking.
Yeah, yep. I mean, there's only so much flexibility in moving a really like a central or a what'd you call it what's it called? Like a figurehead location like that is as conveniently located as you can make it. That's always been the one I would be like, fuck. Like the Elizabeth one is like, I don't see a lot of, that's not going anywhere. Yeah. It's got whatever, like 600 or 700 tenants in that building. Like it's a good spot.
Yeah, we're one of only a few.
Are your leases all synced?
No.
Does that stress you out?
No.
No?
No, I'd much rather have them staggered.
Okay.
So we can handle them one by one.
Fair enough. Makes sense.
If they all rolled at the same time, that's just too many variables hitting all at once.
Yeah.
And yeah, I mean, just with two locations, that's just kind of what we inherited. I'm glad it's the way that it is. But as we continue to grow, we will continue to try to stagger those lease expirations so that we can treat each studio kind of as its own problem to solve.
How do you think about the inevitable, I'm assuming it's inevitable, exit of Brandon and Kirk and Z Growth? Selling at some point, right? Is that that's got to be an inevitable ending to this thing, right? Or is it?
I'll speak from the. You're gonna have a much more emotional answer, I think, as having worked with them.
Yeah.
As a franchisee, speaking purely selfishly, let's pretend I have no friendship with them. I wish Brandon and Kirk would stay forever.
Sure.
Because I think their vision is incredible. The product they've created is incredible. Their willingness to continue to pursue what's best for the long-term upside of the brand, sometimes in conflict with short-term decision-making or small revenue gains that they could kind of capitulate to me, allows for a more lasting brand. Some of my concern is if they sold to a private equity company that let's say just wanted to maximize, next 12 months revenue, locked door policy, programming, even fucking anaerobic. Like, clients, attendance goes down a little bit on an anaerobic day because it's hard. Maybe let's get rid of anaerobic. Like, no. We do fucking anaerobic because it works. It's part of the system that fucking works. And I would say for them leaving, for me personally, it's a little bit of a fear of the unknown because I believe in what they do so much. But as a friend, I also know that they have worked really, really, really fucking hard.
Sure.
And they want to, at some point, realize kind of the financial windfall of all of that work. And so I would never, ever, ever, as a franchisee, let my interests ever come in conflict with what I think is best for them as friends.
Totally. I totally agree. I'm just going to follow them wherever they go. I'm just kidding. That'll be super emotional for me. I basically grew up with them.
Yeah.
They didn't grow up with me, but I certainly grew up with them. My dream scenario would be that they make their nut on a huge sale and they are retained at some degree to like program, and that they still have some connection to their baby. But for me personally, if they exit, to whatever capacity, that all of a sudden returning to Charlotte becomes more appealing to me, and spending more time on the local business, I think is a likelihood.
Sure.
For me. I don't know. I mean, let's see, the Z-Growth partnership happened in 2019, so we're now on year 5.
Yeah. COVID interrupted, but you would think traditional private equity 5-year hold, 7-year hold.
Yep. And it's interesting too. It's like, if it was a private equity group or another fitness group or whatever it may be, does your franchise agreement transfer upon sale?
That's a good question.
I mean, it's just little things like that. My guess is it likely does.
Yeah.
It likely would transfer upon sale. But yeah, I mean, but these are the things, like when you get into a franchise situation, you gotta ask. I mean, look, Orange Theory just merged with I fucking forget the name of that company. Things shake up and all the time. But it's also why, like, again, like you said, like 7 and out, right? 5 to 7 and out. A lot of franchisees, now again, MADabolic's unique. MADabolic brings in these, owner-operator mindsets that are much longer. A lot of people that invested originally in Orange Theory, I would say 5, 7 and out.
Oh yeah,
that's it.
Yeah.
Like
what's all controlled by just a handful of private equity groups that own hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of studios.
Yeah, versus like the mentality of the small business owner. It's like, my kid's gonna know that I have my kid's 5 and when they're 10 and 15, whatever. It's like it's a small business, family owned business type scenario. It's just one of those things that it's the only side I ever have when I have a conversation with someone about the potential of franchising. Like, you just also have to accept that some of that shit may happen, and it could be great for you. It could be an incredible group. It could be like Z-Growth times. Z-Growth was a great thing.
Yeah.
Could be like that. It could also suck ass.
Yeah.
It could be the death of it as well. But yeah, I just wondered, that's something that's like, ever when you guys are having these conversations, like, oh fuck, they didn't go to Earth this year. Thank God, good. They couldn't fucking shake hands with anybody, right? Like, you gotta be thinking about that.
I mean, a little bit. I mean, for us, you can only control what's in front of you.
Yep.
And what we do works. And I think even thinking about any prospective franchisor coming in, as long as we continue to perform well, we have as strong a case study as anybody else in the franchise system that we can point to and say, this works, don't fucking rock the boat too much. And if they come in and they do, then we fucking cross that bridge when we get there. But yeah, right now that doesn't really impact our decision making.
Yeah.
Last question I want to ask, what other brand, it could be a franchise or a non-franchise, but that you've gone to, you've been serviced, you've used their product, and if you had the money, you'd be like, and let's say you did this well and you exited and you're like, oh, cool, we sold our MADabolic portfolio. Like, dude, I fuck with Warby Parker so hard. I would fucking own 10 of those goddamn things right now. Is there another business that you've been to? Because obviously you were so compelled as a client to become an employee, so employee to drop corporate, go GM, you going this route too. Has there been another brand that you've been a customer of even, or seen adjacently that you're like, I would, if I wasn't doing this, I would want to be on the inside of that or do something with that?
You go first.
Like, have you ever had that entrepreneurial itch to like do something different? It's like, I saw the way they did that, and fuck, I'd love to do that.
Yeah. I mean, without naming names, there's some other kind of fitness and wellness products that I've seen that I think have either a good core product or good staff or location or whatever, and I feel like they're kind of operationally weak that I would be interested in acquiring, not necessarily for some kind of idolization of the brand, but more so because I think that
I can fix it.
Yeah. So that, that we actually talk about this a fair amount. That's kind of where my head goes, is because I am talking about entrepreneur versus non-entrepreneur, I just see myself as kind of an operator. Like, I just think this is what I'm good at. This is what I like. I like the problem solving side.
Yeah. Like I would consulting and things like that.
Yeah,
100%.
I would be more interested in probably just looking for an opportunity that I think I could do better, more so than something that's super aligned with my passion.
Which is
She's the opposite.
that doesn't appeal to me at all. Because he was like, well, and then like you could come in and be the brand expert. And I'm like, I don't give a fuck about the brand's purpose or mission. Like that does not appeal to me at all.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know, like the prospect, I can't say I've encountered another brand where I've had the thought like, wow, I would fuck with this brand. I would work for that. I want to get inside of it. I more so think about like how I could scale my nutrition business if I had unlimited hours to spend to that. Because right now it's like I just a few hours a week and it does pretty well. And so I just wonder how I could scale the fuck out of that.
Yeah.
But that's where my head goes outside of Mad. Not so much like what other brand would I be interested in getting in bed with.
Maybe doing some kind of, again, this is more for us, which she's not interested in, but I'm going to keep plugging it anyway. Doing some kind of like, private fund for us, probably backed by us. Because my thing is, for the foreseeable future and maybe forever, I don't want anybody else hanging a guillotine over my head. Like I want to be kind of in control.
Yep.
I don't want to have to like make a PowerPoint to make somebody else happy. Like I'm done with that. I'm done with that bullshit. But starting some kind of fund where we could invest in or acquire businesses that I felt like met certain thresholds or checked certain boxes that I could come in and operate, and she could develop kind of the brand vision and marketing strategy for. And you kind of almost combine. It's like Z-Growth, right? Like I have money and expertise that I can then use to acquire a business and then scale based on that money and expertise. Yeah. So that's probably where I would be more interested in going long term, as opposed to, I love not just coffee in Charlotte, which I do.
Sure.
I don't know shit about coffee. I don't know. Maybe. I don't know shit about coffee or
Let's shift to this. Like, I fucking love whiskey. I would never open a distillery. But if I just had all the money in the world and I just had fuck off, I'd be like, yeah, fuck it. I'm going to create a fucking craft speakeasy.
Sure, yeah,
my version of that. And if it never made $1, like, Joe Rogan opening up a comedy store or a comedy show place. Like, a similar idea. If you would just had the fuck off scenario and you were just going to do something because it'd be like, that would be cool. And I would want to do it for no other interest of just like, it would be cool. What would you do?
I would open a small music venue.
Oh, dope.
I would open a tattoo studio that only employed female artists.
I like it. I like it.
Yeah.
I like it.
Yeah.
You guys could just buy a building and put one of those on each side.
Yeah, that's right.
And just say that.
Maybe a cool concept.
Those are great synergistic neighbors.
Tattoos in the front, music in the back. Yeah.
Ladies and gentlemen, Landon and Finley Funsten, thank you so much. This has been a pleasure.